You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Welcome to the exciting world of the movies.
Hello, movie lovers, and welcome back to the Movie Graveyard. We have a special treat for you. We're hoping it's a special treat. But yeah, we just, like, I kind of came up with the idea because, like, as you remember, Trev, like, we tried to do this really short Halloween episode last year for Mr. Boogedy. And then I was like, oh, this movie's only 45 minutes. Let's talk about stuff. And then we talked about stuff for, like, 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, like, we're definitely, I hope you're still in to cover Boogedy Strikes Back.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, but
I can't rest knowing that we've only done half the Boogedy franchise.
Because I remember at the time you're like, should we just do both? I'm like, let's make them wait.
I feel like the anticipation building up is, once that second episode hits, that's when they're going to announce the Boogedy reboot, because we're just going to get the mania going, all right?
I mean, we got it half stirred up right now, and when Boogedy Strikes Back episode comes out, it's going to be like, bam. But yeah, so, like, I just had some things that, like, were on the top of my mind, and I was just, like, particularly things that I was like, oh, like, like, I wonder what Trev thinks about this. And, like, yeah, there's always Facebook and chats and shit, but they're like, yeah, it's a little impersonal. And, like, for some reason, every time we talk on Facebook, it seems to go a little sideways, Trev.
Well, I was going to say, it's actually kind of nice to do an episode like this, because you and I don't talk as much as we used to. You used to be in a group chat with me and a couple of our podcast buddies, and you probably wisely got out of there because you realized it was, I'm still in there, and we still, just bullshit back and forth. But, there was a lot of just, like, kind of going back and forth on the same issues, and I think you just kind of got sick of it. So you and I mostly talk when we record these podcasts. And
exactly.
I think this is a fun episode to do because I do miss just chatting with about you with just any regular topic and not just a certain 80s movie or a themed thing. So it's kind of a nice just catch up.
It's fun to more chat like that, like one-on-one or whatever. And it's like for me at least, like I found out like I don't really do well when I'm like basically chatting with 5 people at once.
And to what you said about it going sideways, I mean, that's pretty much at this point. I think we've fallen into a pretty fun routine to where if I'm commenting on something on your Facebook page, it's mostly because I feel like I'm trying to get a rise out of you, and then I figure like you're going to keep it going, and I think we both know there's like no ill intentions or anything. It's just, our patter is pretty much down by this point. So I think sometimes other people kind of come in and comment on those, thinking that you and I are like really arguing. But yeah.
Well, I think a lot of the time too, like what happened the other day is like a lot of times I feel like one thing gets said and it kind of opens like a door, and then some more things get said, and like by the end of it I was like more like doing actually more research than anything and reading and following up on the shit we were talking about the other day, just because it's like I don't know, like there's different avenues, and it's like when somebody else gives their input or their thought or whatever, it's like interesting to then kind of reevaluate like your stance and be like oh maybe, and like like I don't know how much I want to get into it, but like that actually did prompt me to do some more research the other day, and I'm just like, it's just, I don't know, it's like fascinating, like the whole world of kind of human psyche and human I don't know what you call it, moving in groups, herd, pack mentality, whatever. And it's interesting that like we pretty much have evolved. Like I almost see it as like a behavior evolution in this digital age. Like there's definitely like tribes, and there's definitely like a line in the sand. And it's like weird because like I don't know about you, Trevor, but like the very, very early promise of the internet, which was kind of spouted out there in the 90s. Remember when it was always called the what was it? The information superhighway.
Yeah.
And it's like now, like I almost feel like we've come into like we've almost gone back to like caveman days, where it's like Clan of the Caveman or something, and we're just like, it's so weird too, because it's like the littlest thing can not necessarily what we're talking about, but I was looking more at the Twitter stuff that we were talking about the other day, and I'm like, man, like they're just people, thank God that like I'm not a famous person or whatever, really in the Twitter sphere like that, because it's like somebody can say one thing and then it opens up like a whole Pandora's box, and the next thing you know, there's hundreds of people piling on,
Yeah, the fact that any famous people remain on Twitter and other social media outlets just boggles my mind, because it's just not worth it. I mean, I stay on Twitter just because, and I'm not very active on Twitter, but I do like following some comedians. You get some funny stuff on there.
Yeah.
But like you, like these filmmakers and stuff, why bother? Because like you said, like just everything. I mean, maybe this is something we'll talk about during this episode, but it is definitely a minefield, and it's not worth it most of the time. And I've certainly seen pretty huge overreactions to what seemed to me to be clearly innocuous comments and tasteless jokes, which, well, actually, I'm going to say this because this actually does tie into one of the topics I brought. So I really was actually kind of appreciating your idea for this episode, which was, you said, Trevor, why don't we just both come up with like 5 or so topics just about whatever in, the world of movies, TV, entertainment to spitball at each other. And I'll save what I was about to say, because one of them actually kind of goes along with something I had.
Perfect. So I figure I got 5, you got 5 or so ish. You just want to like trade off back and forth?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Did you want to go ahead and get started, Trev?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm curious.
All right, man. So okay, like I'll dive right into the one that kind of ties into what we were just saying. So this is actually, this first one is just a filmmaker that I want to talk to you about, because I'm not sure you and I have ever talked about this person. And this is someone I've been a fan of for a long time, but I recently fell kind of back down the rabbit hole because I read one of his books, and that got me into going onto YouTube and watching tons of interviews with him, and then revisiting a few of his movies. And now I'm kind of in the mood to like go back and revisit some more of his movies, and that is John Waters.
Wow.
And I can't remember any time you and I have ever talked about John Waters. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume you probably are a fan.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I kind of just wanted to talk to you just about your general thoughts about John Waters, like maybe like what are your favorites, what do you like about him, but also I wanted to come to you with this topic because this is something I actually raised to a few other friends, including some of our buddies. I raised this issue to like Bird and Tom and then some other people I know, and I was kind of getting to thinking about how John Waters is this interesting figure today, right? Because I was trying to figure out, could he happen today? And because of what we were just saying, I don't think he could, right? So I think this fact that he was making these films that were intentionally tasteless and confrontational, there's no chance of that, happening today. And I think that's like a weird indication of how much culture has shifted, because when we were growing up in the 80s, that was kind of the cool, like liberal thing, right? Was to be confrontational and to do tasteless humor for the sake of tasteless humor, because you're kind of fighting back against the censors. And that was like the mark of a progressive, and that was like the transgressive kind of bad taste humor was looked at as like cool and hip. And I've seen John Waters talk about how he feels strange that the society has shifted to where now the liberals are the censors. And I was just kind of curious, because this is the question I posed to some other people. I want to get your opinion on it. I'm wondering if we are now getting close to the point, maybe how long do you think it's going to be before we see a shift again to where the next version of John Waters and that kind of John Waters, Andy Warhol, mentality does happen? Because I wonder, is this political correct thing that's happening nowadays getting to be so kind of overblown that we actually going to see that pendulum shift again? Or do you think it's like impossible now? Do you think it really is impossible for a new John Waters? So I know that's a lot, but I was just kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, just real quick on John Waters, because I always feel like I'm like the anomaly of like people who like know of, or like I haven't seen all of his movies. I've only seen half his movies, but like I don't know if you were like this or not, Trev, but like I actually came into John Waters, because of my age or whatever. I got into it more when he was like more entering his mainstream phase.
Yeah, so, and that's what I mean. And like that's the fascinating thing about him, right? The fact that he came to fame for a movie like Pink Flamingos, which has, a singing asshole, someone eating dog shit for real, and he became a mainstream figure. And that's what I mean. Like, I don't know that I could see that happening today.
Right.
So I think that's what's fascinating about him.
Yeah, like, so, like, I really came in, like, I would say for me, it was, like, the kind of, like, the hairspray-ish, crybaby-ish, like, whatever. And then, like, yeah, like, I remember seeing those movies actually on video, not in a theater. And then I think probably the last one of his that, like, I caught on video was Serial Mom. And, I was probably just too young. I mean, I was a teenager when that came out. But, like, it wasn't really till, I would say, like, I saw Pecker and Cecil B. Demented theatrically, And then pretty much his last movie, A Dirty Shame, after that, which is kind of like taking on like the whole like, you know, whatever. But I would say like I kind of came into John Waters and being like the most into John Waters with like Pecker and Cecil B. DeMille, because it's just like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like those movies, especially Cecil B. DeMille, it's just like I felt like he had moved to a point where he was just above going the shocking, and he was more about like the kind of like the like using like kind of shocking type of stories for like true satire, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, and I really love Cecil B. DeMille. I think that's a very underrated one in his filmography. I mean, my favorite John Waters movie is Serial Mom, and I actually think that might be the only one I saw in the theater. I remember going to see that with my parents. And I don't think, like, my parents certainly didn't know or care about John Waters. I think they just heard some good things about that new dark comedy with Kathleen Turner, you know, because we went and saw stuff like War of the Roses and Throw Mama from the Train, too. So I know my dad liked dark comedies. And, I loved Serial Mom. I don't know if I'd seen Cry Baby before that, but yeah, so Serial Mom's just still my favorite. But I really like that mainstream phase of him as well. You know, like I respect Pink Flamingos for what it is. I don't know that I'll ever watch it again. I've seen it once, and I think I'm good. I do like Desperate Living and Female Trouble. But yeah, I really like, my favorites are Serial Mom, Cry Baby, and Cecil B. Demented. Those are the three that I really like the most. Oh, and I like Hairspray quite a bit. But yeah, so same thing. I really like him as a personality. He's one of those guys who just, I can watch any interview with him. You know, I've read a few of his books. He's just endlessly fascinating and entertaining to me as well. It's just like as a media figure, you know.
Yeah, I didn't even see Pink Flamingos until like maybe it was probably like about 12 years ago, and that was totally just from like a coworker swapping DVDs back and forth. Like, oh, like you should watch this movie, and I would bring a DVD, and then, you know, she would give me a DVD and stuff like that. And like, yeah, like, I mean, I always knew about Pink Flamingos, and I always knew about the whatever. And like, I kind of like, I want to say through like, you know, either IFC or Sundance or combination of the both, like watching like on satellite in like the late 90s, there was always like I pretty much was filled in on the history of John Waters and kind of like his whole kind of like Baltimore kind of art, you know, gay scene that like he had come out of. And like I always just respected him because like I know exactly what you mean about Pink Flamingos. Like it's kind of like you've seen it. It's like maybe I'll watch it one more time, but it's not something you crave to like watch. But at the same time, it's like I don't know how harsh you can be. Like when I watch those type of movies that are like, I feel like the filmmakers are like literally they have no money, no whatever. They're just running on adrenaline. Like, and let's be honest, sometimes when you're a younger, you know, artist or whatever, like you don't necessarily have your best creative ideas. So like, I just look at it as like, you know, the raw shit or whatever. But yeah, like I definitely would be interested in seeing like his other movies around that time. I mean, it's just, there's something about like that truly independent, you know, and like he kind of morphed into like what I guess you would say like less so like the drive-ins, although I'm sure his movies probably did play there. Like he was more like one of the original midnight movie type guys, you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But yeah, like getting back to like your question, like it's kind of funny how you phrase it because I never really thought of it like that, but you're right. Like it kind of was, you know, not to get into political shit, it's just historical, whatever. It kind of always was like a more of like a liberal, like, and I'd say a lot of it came out of like the persecution, the kind of undergroundness that like the kind of like the gay scene, the gay art scene, because there's always, you know, whether you look at like actual physical art, like, you know what I mean, like paintings, sculptures and stuff, and and you know, and live theater, and like there's always been like kind of like, you know, a large population of gay artists, and it's like I feel like a lot of like looking back on it now, like a lot of the independent movies of the 70s and even early 80s, like they almost always, even if it's not like a gay themed film, there's always like some introduction or some like, you know, theming of like gay culture, and just like it's really weird now to you know, not that like, you know, you or me are like really, you know, experts of what current modern day gay culture is, but I feel like a lot of the gay culture was like kind of bubbling up through the underground film scene back then. And it's like, yeah, it's like it was, I guess, because you had a lot of artists coming from kind of subcultures that like weren't really accepted in society no matter what, like before they even kind of put their art out into the world. So it's kind of like, it's like, they were kind of creating these de facto rebel kind of like artists and filmmakers, you know?
And not even just gay culture, right? But just like this undercurrent of just general like sexual liberation and like total like kind of freedom, non-violent depravity, you know, kind of this like exception of like kinks and fetishes. And just like kind of going back to what we were just saying about this idea of how it kind of being more like the liberals celebrating this. You know, growing up, you can think of like in the world of comedy, who like the underground kind of liberal heroes were comedians like, you know, like a Bill Hicks or a George Carlin or a Richard Pryor, who I think today, as we have seen with the, you know, kind of reactions to people like Dave Chappelle and other comedians, would not be celebrated by liberals. And in fact, in recent years, you've seen that kind of, I'm sure you've noticed sometimes conservatives will try to like kind of claim George Carlin as one of theirs,
right?
And you know, people know George Carlin have to step in and be like, hey, by the way, he like hated your guts. You understand, right? Like he's about as liberal as you get. But because it's weird to see conservatives try and position themselves today as the ones who are more on the side of, you know, bad taste and being willing to be like more shocking with their humor. But I think the important difference is they're, again, you know, not to wade into huge political waters here, but I think a lot of people on the right who do that are kind of more about being mean and punching down against certain groups and trying to, you know, really oppress people. And that's the thing about like the transgressive nature I'm talking about with someone like John Waters or George Carlin was never punching down. It was trying to celebrate marginalized groups and trying to give them their place at the table, you know. So that's just a general thought on that too. But
yeah, exactly. And it's kind of funny because, you know, a lot of the stuff that's kind of come out. I mean, it's, you know, we can duck politics all we want, but it's like I think that's like kind of like a really big theme that's been going on the last couple years, and it's like kind of like how woke or whatever you want to say, how politically charged can entertainment get and still be like actually freely made art, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of interesting because it's like, I think we're kind of turning a corner right now. I mean, obviously, you know, like we've been living in cancel culture pretty much for like the last, probably 6 or 7 years at least. And it's kind of like we went through the whole Me Too movement. And like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like if you're like, you've been found to be like convicted of rape and like, I know there's like allegations and that's a whole nother issue of like, you know, innocent until proven guilty. But like, I mean, like, I think I pretty much everybody's on the board. That's somebody like a Harvey Weinstein. Like, there's no coming back from that. But it's like somebody who's more on the other end of the, you know, the spectrum of I guess offensiveness. I guess you say somebody like a James Gunn with his situation and just digging up old tweet jokes and like, I think we're finally like coming on the corner where I feel like more like where people there's, you know, with the kind of like the online presence, there's always going to be that quick like snap judgment. But I think thankfully, like getting back to what we were actually talking about here, I think people like if they come out and like they're honest and they're sincere and whatever, like I think to some degree, some things are forgivable now. Like, I think pretty much James Gunn is in the clear. I think he can resume his career, you know, and like, and like stuff like that. And I think there's going to be more instances of like James Gunn types. Cause like, you know, like it's not just like tweets or online things and whatever. Like, you know, there's a lot of stuff that like, you know, was either acceptable or like was not offensive in movies 20, 30 years ago. And now is like, I don't think artists should be held against that. Like if you're making a movie that's like offensive to people like right now in 2021 or whatever, I think okay, like maybe like you can rub people the wrong way that way, but I don't think people should be held to like stuff that was made even 10 years ago, let alone 15, 20, 30 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like,
and that's what I'm curious about. Like, do you feel like you see that backlash against this kind of coming? And I want to be clear, like I'm about as liberal as it gets. And like, I get like really nervous and bristle about this whole cancel culture term.
Right.
People overuse it. And I think, you know, in most of the cases, they try to make it seem like it's a bad thing when the ones we're talking about, you know, I like when people say, well, actually it's consequence culture. You know, a lot of people deserve to get everything taken away from them when, as you said, their actions are kind of revealed. But as you said, then there are these ones where, you know, someone kind of gets, you know, castigated or pulled down for an old joke. And as I said, like there was a time when it was kind of looked at as like there's a place for tasteless humor, and I wonder if that can still exist. You know, like we can also wrap like Troma into this as well with John Waters, right? Like Troma is a company I love, and I don't think anybody would deny that Lloyd Kaufman is a pretty big, liberal figure. But I mean, look at the kind of humor he does in his films, and I know Troma is not really doing that well in general nowadays, but I just imagine some of those early Troma movies coming out today and how like this new younger generation would react to them. But to your point about like people having to apologize for things, that's even my question: is there going to come a point where someone like someone like James Gunn can even just say, I don't know that I need to apologize for that.
Right.
It was just a tasteless joke, right? And they are just jokes. So I don't know. It's complicated for me because I do think everyone's opinions and emotions need to be valued. And I think if you can't determine what offends somebody, and if someone is offended, they are offended. But I don't know. It's weird.
It is weird because I think what I personally learned in like the last 5 years or so is like as much as you want to like defend the intentions behind a piece of art, whether it be a movie, a joke, or a comic book, whatever, it's like you just have to accept the fact, or at least I've accepted the fact, like you can't you can't stop somebody from being offended. They're either going to be offended or not. Like, to me, it's like, okay, that's step one of the equation. Like, you put something out there, somebody reacts a certain way. Okay, to me, what's more important than even step one is what is step two? Like, are you going to say, like, are you going to apologize? Which, like you said, like, I don't even know, sometimes you really need to apologize, but it's like, depending on what the situation is. But it's like, just don't rub salt in the wound type thing. You know what I mean? And I think the kind of like the back and forth and everything always being taken to the nuclear level is like I basically just think we need like more conversations on stuff. And like, I'm happy to see people not being quote unquote canceled. Like, I mean, like I said, like if you're somebody like a Harvey Weinstein, and it's like, basically, if you're doing like actual legally defined crimes, you're going to pay the price one way or another, either by going to jail or, you'll be a pariah. But like somebody making a piece of entertainment, that's why, like, even when people write like, like the thing we were talking about the other day, like I'm just like, okay, like some guy wrote a fucking article, like who cares? You know what I mean? But the response from like the kind of like the people that were like, responding to the James Gunn comments on Twitter, and I'm just kind of like, I kind of feel like that's why we're not going to get to like a mid-level place. But I will say one thing is like we probably can't ever reach like total harmony the way we used to. Like, not that we ever were totally harmonious about these things, but it's like, I don't know, like it just seems like every outrage like never has a chance to die down now, because either there's like the next outrage coming, or it's just like people just have long ass memories now in the digital age. But like, yeah, I kind of do see like that humor coming back, in all honesty. And then, like you said, it's ironic that it used to come from a more liberal place in the politics and culture and art, and like now it seems like it's coming back more, like you said, kind of like almost in like a right wing way, which like I will totally like welcome it, as long as it's like not done in a way to like inflame or whatever. Like for example, like I always like stand-up comedy by Andrew Dice Clay. He's like one of my favorite comedians. Like to me, like, and his material is quite different now than it was. Like, I mean, he's still the same character. He still talks about the same shit. I think it's still probably offensive to most people, but like, he doesn't do like the gay jokes and the whatever things that he used to like in the early 80s. And it's kind of like, to me, it's like, okay, like this guy is doing his thing in a comedy club. Like whatever he's saying like behind a closed door that you have to pay to get into. So it's like, to me, like that kind of thing, it's just like, just fucking let it go, whether it's offensive or not. To me, it's more like the people that are like, they're doing it as a crusade just to piss people off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they're not really, I mean, this is a longer discussion. I don't want to spend too much time on this one topic since we both have 5. But it's frustrating too, just because you see, I've seen plenty of people I follow and just, make some kind of innocuous comment or get misinterpreted or get misconstrued. And the people who kind of attack them aren't really looking for an apology. Like an apology is not enough. And you don't know it's enough. And yeah, I don't know. It's just strange. And then the last thing I'll say about the John Waters element of it, and like my curiosity of if there could even be a John Waters today, is I think also what's important is, and what makes it difficult to have there be a new version of John Waters, is that, he came to prominence at a time when the mainstream view of culture was like much more, just large, right, and kind of omnipresent.
Yeah.
And today, because of the internet and because there are so many kind of subgroups and everything, it's really difficult for there to be kind of transgressive art today, right? Because you can't really shock anyone anymore with anything, and so it's getting to the, and then, but to again, to what I was just saying, I think the one kind of caveat to that is that we have now been falling so hard into this. Well, be careful about everything you say, and we have to always be very, very woke. That's where I am curious. Like maybe in the next 10 years or so, maybe we will see that pendulum swing again, and the left kind of take that back. I don't know.
Yeah, like it's really hard to say. I would say like, and obviously it's not the same because we're comparing a film director to like what's happening today. But I think like if anything, probably the closest thing you're going to have to like a John Waters type is somebody who makes content like on YouTube. Like there's a guy who like he's pretty interesting, but at the same time like I don't really enjoy his stuff enough to recommend it. But there's this guy, I want to say his name is Danny Mullen. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he kind of does these videos. Like he's not like your typical YouTuber where like every couple of days he's like shitting out like a whatever. Whatever, like he does a lot of shocking shit, like some of it borderline jackass stuff, but then it's like, instead of doing like a 5-minute shock prank stunt, like he actually, like pretty much all his videos are about half-hour long, and they're like kind of built around the theme and whatever. So like there was one where him and his friend recently kind of recreated Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and like, they got dressed up in the suits and they kind of like retraced the steps of like the movie, but at the same time it was just kind of like them goofing off. And it's like, yeah, like I think it's gonna come through like a really like unofficial channel like that's like, you know what I mean, like somebody who's just making provocative shit but not really like I don't think it'll be like in a formal way. Like I don't think there will be like that too many shocking books or too many shocking like actual movies, because those have to all clear channels and have funding. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. It's really too hard to say if it will ever swing back the way it used to. But yeah. So Trev, most of my topics I think are like kind of short ones. So I don't think every topic we talk about will be that in depth. But that did get me thinking. But this is probably my only real long topic here. So Trev, I watched a couple movies this week, and there's a couple movies I've been wanting you to watch. And one of them I'm pretty sure you never will watch, but there's one that maybe you did watch, and I think you're talking about for years. If people don't know, I've been begging Trev to watch Solo, A Star Wars Story. I'm pretty sure you haven't watched that one, have you, Trev?
I have not, no.
But like, I will ask you, because you don't like Frankenstein chopped together films. Did you actually pay attention to the Snyder Cut?
No, I did not watch the Snyder Cut, and in fact, I have not seen the Whedon Cut either. I'm in a weird position with this. So like, just to go back to Solo, I will end up watching Solo someday because, for other listeners who have heard me on here before might know, I co-host a podcast called Failure to Franchise, where our show is all about failed franchise starters, and Solo is certainly on our list. So that will be the first time I finally get around to it. And I'll be honest, because I've heard both good and bad things about it. I've just never watched it because I just kind of have no interest in that story. I've just never been a character where I've been like, I want to know his origin, and the things I did hear didn't sound that appealing to me. So I just never bothered with it. It's not even like I'm super against it. It just, I'm at it. This will kind of tie into something I have to say later, but I'm at a point where if I'm not super interested, I probably won't sit down to bother with it unless I need to. And that kind of goes to the Snyder Cut as well, to where I don't dislike Zack Snyder. I actually kind of like Zack Snyder. I think he seems like, from everything I've heard, he sounds like kind of a good person. I think he's an interesting filmmaker. I thought it was very funny when like the Watchmen trailer came out and they were calling him like a visionary filmmaker, and he'd made like, 2 movies at that point.
Right.
Like a lot got put on him very early on. I think he's obviously like an amazing visualist. And I don't know. I'm in the group that actually likes the film Sucker Punch. And that's because I recognize it as being not a great and not a perfect film, but I genuinely think he's trying to say something interesting, and I don't think he's quite pulling it off. But I actually like ambition in filmmaking, and if someone is trying to do something and is, it can be fairly interesting in like the trying. I'll give it credit. And I have the Blu-ray of it, and the Blu-ray has one of those maximum movie modes where he stands in front of the screen and talks to you about the movie. And you can see that he's really someone who I think was interested in films like Brazil. And, you know, he's kind of like looks inside a person's head. He was trying to do his version of it, right? But his version of it is just bigger and stupider and has girls in short skirts fighting samurais. It's like,
Right.
all right, well, whatever. But it's kind of a fun movie, and it is trying something. And I really liked Watchmen. I love his Dawn of the Dead remake. I know people are really down on 300 nowadays, and I agree it hasn't aged amazingly well, but I still think it's pretty entertaining. But I really don't like his Batman and Superman stuff, and I don't think he's the right person to handle those characters because he clearly does not like superheroes, and that's why he was the perfect director for Watchmen. You know, a movie that's very suspicious of superheroes. And everything he ever said about Batman and Superman and the decisions he made in his filmmaking kind of seemed like somebody who was just like, well, if superheroes were real, they would all suck, you know? And there's a place for that. There's a take for it. And I've definitely, this is the last thing I'll say so we can move on to whatever you want to say about it. But I was like, I used to be really like, oh, I can't believe they're letting him make these movies. Like, why is he the DC guy? I don't really care about that anymore because we're in a position now to where there's always going to be more of these movies. So make whatever like Superman and Batman movies you want to make, and if I don't like them, fine. Someone else might, and I'll just wait for the next iteration, which is probably only like 2 or 3 years away, anyways. But yeah, by the time we got to Justice League, I really didn't like Man of Steel or BVS. I really, really, really disliked BVS. So I had no interest in Justice League, and I didn't bother with the Whedon one, which I heard was garbage, and the Snyder one I've heard is a definite improvement. But I mean, 4 hours of a vision I already know I don't like. Yeah, I can't imagine sitting down to watch that.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, I like all Zack Snyder movies in all honesty. The only one I haven't seen is the animated film about the owls.
Yeah.
And which, even though he technically directed, I always like blew that off. Like, he didn't really direct it. Come on,
Yeah.
He didn't really direct it. But I mean, apparently recently they've been saying, and I did enjoy Man of Steel. I still watch parts of it on TV from time to time, like pretty much just the action scenes. But like a lot of just how physically that movie was made, I didn't like it because the thing that got me into Zack Snyder was his visuals, and I'm like, I felt like dude, I was so blown away when 300 came. Like, I remember 300 came out, and like I watched the movie, and I was like blown away by it, and like I you know, like literally, like as soon as the movie was over, like I walked across the thing to the shopping mall, and I went to Hot Topic, and I bought one of the figures of like one of the little like ninja warrior type guys, and I was just like all about that. I even bought a 300 shirt that had Gerard Butler on it. Like, I was like, finally somebody's like making movies again. You know what I mean? Like when I say movies, I mean like a motion picture, you know what I mean? Where like every frame is like a painting and
Yeah.
I was all about it, man. And same with his, you know, and I enjoyed Dawn of the Dead for what it was. And I really loved Watchmen. Like, I kind of held out. I didn't watch the theatrical cut. I've only ever seen the director's cut. So it's just like, I was all about his shit. And like, yeah, like when he hit that Superman movie, I was like, this isn't Zack Snyder. Like, Zack Snyder doesn't do like nonstop shaking cam during like slow dialogue scenes, and he does like, it kind of like knocked me off the stank. But yeah, like for what it is, like I enjoyed the Whedon cut. I enjoyed the Snyder cut like a lot more. Like the Whedon cut, like what's weird too, when you really compare the movies back to back, kind of like how I did. Like, I kind of just like scanned through after I watched the Snyder cut, and I watched the Whedon cut again, and I was like, I rewatched the scenes that weren't like the Whedon cut really is like that's what's kind of weird to me when people are like, oh, the Whedon cut is garbage, but the Snyder cut is so good. Like, it really is a lot of the same movie. Like, it's really like 80% of the same movie. It's just the only thing like Joss Whedon kind of did was like he just chopped it down, and like his reshoots or whatever, like they're just bad comedy scenes. but there is like the one thing I miss from the Whedon cut is like when Superman wakes up, and like he's not necessarily evil, he's just like weirdly confused, and he sees everybody as a threat, so he starts fighting them. And it's totally just, you know, a whatever scene just to get the heroes to fight each other. But I love it when the Flash goes, "Pet Cemetery." I wish there's that one line. I wish Zack Snyder could find it in his heart to put it into his cut, but it won't happen. So, Trev, the reason I brought this up is I finally watched a movie we've talked about me watching a long, long time, and I finally watched it. Talking about our boy with Knives Out.
Oh, all right.
So yeah, so here's my impressions of Knives Out. The first hour of this movie, I was like, holy shit, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. This little troll motherfucker, he made a masterpiece. Like, I love the first hour. There's like a little bit of quirky humor here or there. I was kind of like, yeah, there's a little hit or miss, this or this. But man, like that movie, and what really got me was the visuals. Like, it was so, that's right up my alley as far as like visuals in a movie. Like, everything was so meticulous. Visually, the movie was beautiful. I was really surprised when I listened to a little bit of the commentary track. It was the first movie he ever made digitally, which shocked me because, like, I noticed the film grain and I noticed it was like a little Sharpie looking. Like, I was like, it didn't look fake to me, but I was like, oh, this looks like maybe like they did some sharpening during the Blu-ray because I watched it on a rented Blu-ray. So I was like, it was like maybe during like the digital process they didn't know how to. Because that happens with film grain movies, you know, like Blue Underground and all these ones. Like the settings you do when you encode it. But the thing that like really had me fooled that it was shot on film, besides it being Rian Johnson, and like I know he pretty much always shoots on film, was like the colors were so sumptuous and beautiful. And he was talking about his cinematographer. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name, but his cinematographer actually like has research and like has his own individual like settings and ways that he can like make digital look like film. And I'm just like, whoever like somebody's got to pay this guy to develop a system for like these digital cameras, you know, whether it be like Sony who makes like the Alexa camera, which is a lot of
it's Steve Yedlin, and I know like he really like he basically he really had to convince Rian Johnson to do that movie digitally. Like it was kind of a fight, I believe, but yeah. And
I mean, I could see why, because it's like the results I'm pretty sure are probably like exactly what Rian Johnson wanted, but like. Yeah, that guy he's a genius cinematographer, genius. And I know with digital, it's you know, mostly with film, the cinematographer, the work goes in while you're shooting, the lighting, everything, and I'm sure the lighting was meticulous as well with the Knives Out. But yeah, like the kind of like the afterthought and the aftercare to like really like that's one of the most beautiful movies I think I've ever seen. And the thing that I loved about it. It's also kind of the only one little critique I'll have of the movie was I was blown away by how timeless of a film it felt. Mm-hmm. And then there was some like how we always said, so like for just recapping, if people didn't hear us talk about this originally, was like, I hate it when people throw like really, really like recent politics into shit, because it's like, okay, like movie making is usually like a 2 to 3 year process from script stage to it's like in the theater usually. And like it just instantly dates a film, and it's like one thing that kind of besides the trailer being like over the top, like fucking slapsticky, whatever, kind of turned me off. Like when the movie came out, like critics like really, oh, this is a political masterpiece, and it really sums up Trump's America. And like we had talked about, we were kind of like, nah, that's not really what it is. It's really kind of taking shots at both sides and whatever. And like I agree fully, like with what after seeing the film, like what we talked about. But it was just kind of like the modern day political commentary. It was kind of like some of it was funny, but I was like, man, like you really had a shot here. Like besides that dialogue and showing a random cell phone and just the cars being modern cars, like to me that movie, like you could have just removed that stuff out of the script. You could have set it in like 1978 and it would have been the exact same movie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like. But that's just a personal thing. That's just, you know, like maybe they thought like we have to make this modern or else it would just feel like an old timey, stodgy murder mystery. But I gotta say, man, like the scenes between Christopher Plummer and Ana de Armas, like that's some of my like to me that's up there with like fucking Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like there was there's really like a fine level of some of the writing in that movie, and like I don't want to say anything, you know, because it's I mean, you know, going in it's a movie of twists and turns, so I don't want to spoil it for anything who's seen it or not seen it yet. But it's like it's like, and then really like the only thing where it really was kind of like, yeah, I don't know about this movie was like the ending. There's kind of like a running gag, literally, of some gross out humor, and I just wanted to ask you, like, what did you think about the gross out humor?
I didn't take it like to be that gross. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but it didn't really bother me too much. I thought it certainly didn't take me out of anything. The one thing I'll slightly agree with you is I think I don't mind like some of the politics he inserts into it. I think one character in the film, the son, the young son, is kind of like too underdeveloped for that for that joke about him to work. Like it does feel like that's a little more plastered in, just because it doesn't really go anywhere. I think if you're gonna do stuff like that, you have to commit to it a little bit more. Right. And I think that's the problem. Is like I like the discussion where it's kind of feeding into modern day discussions about immigration and stuff, because that's always going to be the fact. People can say that's a commentary on Trump's America, but it just happened to come out during Trump's America. Right. Rich people are always going to be racist assholes, and so that didn't bother me. But the stuff with like the son being very much a Trumper on the phone, not enough screen time was given to it for that to matter. So I could see like that, where people being like, oh, why is this in here? And then other people being like, no, it's great, it's in there because I agree with it, But the gross out stuff, no, that didn't bother me. I really like the whole way the film wrapped up. And in general, I mean, I loved the film. And I definitely was always curious to know how you'd feel about it, because, I'm going to just say, Goat, I was always curious with like you being kind of dismissive of it. I was just always curious to see how much, your negative feelings about his kind of Star Wars stuff was starting to just like overly color your overall opinion of Rian Johnson. And I had a feeling Rian Johnson might come up during this episode. So I did a little bit of research, and I kind of, maybe this was tucked away in the back of my head, but I did a search on your Facebook profile to see how much you talked about Rian Johnson. And I was reminded that before, Last Jedi came out, you seemed like quite the Rian Johnson fan. I found an old comment from you where you talked about how you were very excited about him being given a Star Wars movie, and you said you were more confident about him doing Star Wars than J.J. Abrams. Oh, yeah. You were talking to other people on your page about how you're like, oh, Brick is really good, but his best film is Looper. Yeah. So I was just kind of, me and you have argued about Rian Johnson so much in recent years. It was kind of fun to see how much you used to like him. But
well, I'll go a step further, and I'll just be completely honest. The sequel trilogy has been quite traumatic for me, but like I still maintain that as much as I dislike the sequel trilogy, to me the biggest and worst blow was The Force Awakens, and it kind of just like, basically just not being original. But like I was kind of so like, after that movie, I was like, okay, like it was, it recreated a lot of shit, which I don't like. I don't like when you do sequels and you just recreate shit from previous movies. It's lazy. It's like, quite frankly, it's boring to me. Like, I don't know how you blow up a Death Star in part 7 of a movie when you just blew up a Death Star in part 6 and 4 of a movie series. But like,
and then come back and do it again in part 9.
Oh God, exactly. But it was like my thing was like, dude, like I was 1,000%, I will fully admit it, I thought Rian Johnson was going to save Star Wars. And like, to most people, like they're like, oh yeah, I was on board with TFA and it was great and blah blah blah. And then Rian just came and ruined everything. Well, like I don't really see it that way. Like, to me, like if you wanted to argue, like he had like next to George Lucas, maybe he probably made the biggest artistic statement in Star Wars. Mm-hmm. But that sequel trilogy was already broke, and he just kind of stepped in and did his like little chapter of it, and then he stepped out of it. Like, whether you love, hate in between on that movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. To me, the distaste came more from the fallout of that movie, mm-hmm. like his part and other people's part. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I mean, I agree to the point. I mean, the thing I love about The Last Jedi is that it did feel like someone making this kind of artistic statement about Star Wars, and I agree mm-hmm. that I had this brief moment where I thought, oh, this is like, they're brave enough that this is what they're going to let it be now, right? And then for a lot of reasons, obviously they kind of chickened out on that. I do wish that he had just been allowed to write, or had been kind of, convinced to write the next one, to, have there be like more of a natural follow up. I don't know. Have you read have you ever read that Colin Trevorrow script, the discarded one?
I've just read articles about it that talk about the highlights, but I've never really, and like, I don't know if recently, have you seen the whatever concept artwork that came out of it with the giant battles? It looks amazing.
Yeah, no, I really think they screwed up there, because I really like the Trevorrow script. I have a copy of it. I've read it, and I do think it would have been. I don't know. I honestly think if that film had been made, I think a lot of the kind of anger that we still see about Last Jedi would have dissipated, because I think that movie would have done a nice job of kind of, giving us a more natural conclusion to the things Rian Johnson was setting up. And it's just weird to me that they tossed it all aside for the next Abrams one. But.
Well, I mean, to me, the way I see it with Force Awakens, Abrams, he delivered like a kind of, you know, a pretty on the outside like present that had nice wrapping and paper, but the inside was like a little stale and rotten.
Yeah.
And then Rian Johnson kind of came in and I don't know, like I don't know how to phrase it, but like because Force Awakens was set up so much for the most part like a mystery box movie, you know.
Yep.
Big fucking surprise there. Thank you, JJ. Yep. Like I just look at it as like Rian Johnson. It's like, what do you do when like you're doing the middle part of a trilogy and you've had pretty much nothing handed to you, like nothing concrete. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's the part of the conversation. See, I'm glad to hear you say that, Go, because I feel like that's the part that it annoys me that people never bring that up, especially when they're like criticizing The Last Jedi. And it's like, well, look what he was given to work with. I mean,
yeah.
You know, people like criticize his take on Luke, but it's like, look how J.J. Abrams set up Luke, you know. And J.J. Abrams is like such a coward. That he's like you can tell he's like afraid to write the Luke Skywalker character. You know, he didn't want to give him any dialogue in the first one. Then he was like afraid to do anything with him in the third one. He disregards even, you know, The Last Jedi ends with Luke Skywalker saying "See you around, kid" to Kylo Ren, and we get no scenes between them in Rise of Skywalker. I'll tell you, in the Trevorrow script, which I loved, I think you might have heard this. Like Luke is like a Force ghost that haunts Kylo Ren the entire film. It's like following him around and bothering him, and that's great, you know. And it's just weird how Abrams is like so afraid to even touch that character. And yeah, he just set up all these questions with no answers, and then literally just handed it off to Rian Johnson. Said, "Here, you figure it out." And that's, I don't know, like you got it. Like Johnson did what he could, you know.
I mean, my biggest thing, because like, you know, like when I first saw, because I felt very underwhelmed when I saw Force Awakens. I felt very underwhelmed when I saw Last Jedi. It was like Last Jedi kind of like my biggest, if you really want to know my biggest critique with Rian Johnson's Last Jedi, it's like, why the fuck did he have it like pick up like the next day? To me, that always kind of like crippled and handicapped the epicness of that trilogy. But like more than anything, I'm just like, even if I would, like, obviously I think Rise of Skywalker should have been avoided at all costs in terms of what they end up making. But if I even, like, as cool as the Trevorrow shit is, the little bit that I heard, and I mean, I don't mean like it's cool, it's fucking great, but like it's you know, it would have been serviceable, at least it sounds like. But even if I would have had like if I could have just backed up a Brinks truck to make whoever wanted to do it, like I would even pick Rian Johnson to do Part 9 over Trevorrow, in all honesty, because like at the very least, it's like, okay, like Rian Johnson releases Last Jedi, like, you know, half of the world or whatever you want to say, like, you know, a vocal section of the fan base comes out and crucifies him for it. At least hear the fucking guy out and see what he would have done. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But yeah, but no, like Knives Out, like the gross out humor, like for the most part in the climax, I was just like, I felt like I was watching an A-list like picture, and I was just like, this is kind of like. And kind of to go back on my second part of the other movie I watched this week, is like, there's something about Rian Johnson's personality, and there's no, I just want to state that there's no lack of talent with this guy by any stretch of the imagination. It just, he has like, I would call it like a prankster streak, like, like you can see it a little bit in Last Jedi, and I know there's the whole like, I know people are like, oh, subverting expectations. I see it more as like he's kind of like doing a cat and mouse game with you the whole time during Last Jedi. Like he's kind of hinting that this or this could go this way, and then somehow it just never does, and something else comes up and it hints that this or this could go this way. And then, and to be fair, like I think all three of those sequel trilogy movies kind of did that on a level. But like, yeah, like I almost feel like, I don't know, like I guess like me personally, like Knives Out, like even though I enjoyed the humor in it, it worked more to me as like actually a straight up drama. And I wonder if that's like even more my like taste coloring, like my like was I supposed to be laughing the whole time? Because like there was like a lot of like times when I was really wrapped up into the you know, the acting and stuff, and I was just like, it worked for me on a dramatic level, like 100%. And then like the ending got a little shticky, too much for my taste, and I'm kind of like, I like genuinely loved like 80% of this movie, and like the 20% that I didn't like, I'm kind of like, I don't know how rewatchable it is for me, because A, it's a mystery, and you know the mystery the second time around you watch it, but B, it's just like, yeah, there's kind of just that gross scene at the end, and I'm just kind of like, but I will say like the final shot you know, like the way the movie's in, I was like, now that's how you end a movie. That's cinematic, you know, feeling and everything. Man, I have to say I love our girl Jamie. I wish she could break free of this Michael Myers tyranny. But just not to spend too much time on it, but real quick. So, okay, I was like, you know, I walked away, like, not a mixed experience, like, of, like, you know, oh, like, you know, I like, it was bad, but, like, I came off of Knives Out on, like, for the most part, such a high, but I'm like, why was there so many parts of it that I love so much and then other parts I didn't, whatever? So I was like, I want to dig around, like, on this guy, and I'm just like, why does he kind of do these little prankster-ish things as a filmmaker? So I finally went back in the one movie in his filmography I never saw. The next night I watched Brothers Bloom. And then I kind of feel like I got this bigger picture of this guy and that, like, nothing adds up. Like, this guy is a chameleon. Like, if you watch all his movies back to back, like, I feel like Brothers Bloom is, like, to describe it, it's almost like a toned down version of, like, a Wes Anderson quirky film.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's, you know, it's influenced, but it's more like the humor is toned down a bit, and it has more of a kind of breezy, almost like 1960s French wave sensibility about it. And I actually like it was a little weird. Like, there was times where the movie was paced, like, kind of quick, like, kind of choppy, like, almost like he was told to shorten it down. And there's other parts where the movie really breathed. And at first I was, like, not buying at all just the brother pairing of Ruffalo and Adrian Brody. But, like, by the end of the movie, like, especially, you know, not giving spoilers away to people who haven't seen it, because I don't think anybody's really seen Brothers Bloom, like, I really enjoyed, like, the way it wrapped up and kind of the whole message, because it's kind of like, it's all about these two guys who are con men, and they're kind of like pulling out, you know, Adrian Brody's tired of the con men life. They've been doing it as brothers since they were little kids. There's like a nice little charming, almost fairy tale beginning of the movie that's narrated by the great Ricky Jay, and like, it just was such a charming movie. But I'm like, he definitely had his humor, but I didn't feel that, like, that little, like, needling, like, prankster-ish, like, vibe from it all. Like if you show me back-to-back Brothers Bloom and Knives Out, like, I probably wouldn't, like, think... Like, I would think both movies were made by, like, an independent film director, but I wouldn't really think that, like, they were made by the same guy. So, like,
yeah, that's interesting, because I agree. I mean, I can't. I'm trying in my head. I'm just picturing, like, you know, watching like Brick, Looper, Knives Out, and Brothers Bloom, and you're right that there's not a clear, like, directorial style through line there. Yeah, Brothers Bloom is the one that I like the least of his films, probably. Yeah. And I kind of have the same sense where, like, I when you said the thing about Wes Anderson, that's so dead on. Yeah. And But to me, it's like the worst Wes Anderson movies.
You're right.
Like, it's like Darjeeling Limited. Like, maybe these guys just need to keep away from Adrian Brody. Something about him just gets these guys to be more up their butts than usual or something. Because I don't even I don't hate Brothers Bloom. I just felt like it was the least successful of his films I've seen for sure. But yeah.
And by the way, I like, especially watching the movies back to back, I almost feel like now I understand Rose Tico being pushed to the kind of forefront of Last Jedi the way she was. I feel like that was his apology to Asian actresses after what he did with the Boom Boom character in the Brothers Bloom.
Rinko Kikuchi.
Yeah, it's just like very likable character. But if you ever want to see something that's a stereotype, oh boy.
Yeah, I think the only, like, through line to Rian Johnson is I think he's one of those filmmakers like a Tarantino or Edgar Wright who has a lot of influences and loves, like, all these, like, old movies and classic genres, and he wants to, like, put his imprint on all of them, right? He wants to, before he leaves this earth, he wants to make a movie in every, like, realm of everything he loves, so you can see him, like, trying to do everything, and that can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing, and I think, you know, it all depends on what opportunities he's given. It sounds like now he's just going to be a Knives Out world for, like, a while, you know, with this, like, huge crazy Netflix deal he signed.
Just before we finally put Rian Johnson to bed, what's your thought on that deal?
I kind of don't get it, and I'm not super happy about it. I just, you know, like you, Goat, I'm sure you kind of agree that as someone who really liked that series and was excited about, you know, it continuing, because I think that's like a perfect kind of franchise where all you need is Benoit Blanc back, and I really like Daniel Craig as that character, and I like the idea of just seeing him solve different mysteries and always getting an all-star cast. But, now these are going to be Netflix movies, and that to me just like instantly devalues them, and they're not going to seem like a big deal, so people might, I'm sure we've talked about this in previous episodes, but like one of our early conversations about Knives Out back in the day was, me and you had this kind of disagreement about how successful that movie was going to be. And then I think even though like I was kind of more like, I think it's going to be a hit, I don't think either of us were expecting it to be the hit it was.
No.
And I think one of the best stories about Knives Out was it came at a time where we were all like very kind of depressed and unsure about the future of mid-budget movies. And the fact that this movie, went on to make over 300 million and just stuck around the box office for so long, I was excited to see like a movie like that become a franchise. And then it's like, oh, but by the way, from now on it's going to be on Netflix, where it's going to get dumped, get talked about for one weekend, and then be forgotten because it'll be out of the algorithm by the next Tuesday, and that's a shame. I think it's too bad that I don't just begrudge him for taking the deal, but I don't know that even like that deal, when you look at how much he got paid to make 2 movies for Netflix, 2 Knives Out sequels, that's like less to me than I think those sequels maybe had a chance to make in a theater. I don't know.
Yeah, like okay, this is my thoughts on it, and I'm wondering what you think about this, Trev. Is like, so at first they're like, it's a very precarious deal because, like you said, it's just taking box office out of the equation. Mm-hmm. But basically, this is really weird. I believe the overall number is $450 million for 2 films. The only requirements of the films is that each film have the same budget that the original Knives Out. So like, they don't want him just like to basically pocket $200 million. So that's condition number 1. The first movie was made for $40 million. So out of the $250 million, or what? No, what is it? $450 million? $450. Yeah, okay, $450 million. Out of $450 million, he only has to spend roughly $82 million, in budget. But also the second condition is that he needs not he, but Netflix requires that Daniel Craig be in both films, which I would imagine Daniel Craig's got his hand out like big time. So I mean, obviously, that's going to eat up a bigger chunk of the budget, but it's really weird. It's pretty much just like, you deliver us 2 like I don't know, whatever, known movies, 2 sequels, and it's like you make the movies for this, and then you guys can just split the money however you want, which I don't have a problem with that. I mean, good for him as a creator. He leveraged that deal to where, like, I'm pretty sure this is going to be, out of all his projects throughout his career, I'm sure this is by far the biggest windfall financially. So I mean, good for him. I mean, Fede Alvarez kind of did the same thing with his movie a couple years ago. But like, where I really started thinking of it, because I mean, yeah, it's like everybody wants money, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure Rian Johnson was like, oh, this is our chance to leverage this into whatever. But I think more than anything was, I think he really wanted to make this a trilogy, and by doing this deal is because, like you said, like we kind of argued, I was like, oh, Knives Out, like, probably won't be successful because nobody goes to see these little smaller movies anymore. I think he did this because he's like, this is the way that like 1000% proof guarantees, like, I'm going to get to do 2 more of these. Like, whereas, like, you make part 2, and then you got to wait. And it's like, I personally, well, again, take what I say with a grain of salt, because I didn't think the first movie was going to be successful. I don't know if that lightning could strike twice for Knives Out theatrically. So I think maybe, and like you said, like, you're giving up box office revenue, which, that's not a given. That's a, bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush type situation. But also, like you said, like, these movies are going to dissipate from public consciousness is way quicker, because Knives Out, I don't know if you remember this, Trev, but Amazon paid a shitload to get Knives Out pretty quickly on Amazon Prime.
Yep. And
there was a whole second round of television advertising for that. So like, to me, that movie is like really in the public consciousness, like,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, and I've definitely seen people say the opposite of what I just said, and it kind of ties into what you just mentioned. But people saying, well, who knows? The second one might not have been a hit, especially since we still don't know really how the box office is going to recover from COVID in general.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There is that part of me that just wishes he'd been more willing to like roll the die on that and take that old school risk of saying, well, let's just still try this theatrical, and maybe it won't be as big of a hit, but he gave it the old college try, right? And that's just the part of me that wants, I don't know, still wants theaters to matter, and doesn't want these to just be fucking Netflix movies that will just come
exactly.
and go. And I might even be more okay with it if it was like HBO Max that made the deal or something, just because I feel like they treat their original properties with like more respect. I really feel like just Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix don't get it. They're tech people, Trev, who got in the movie business. They're not movie people.
Yep.
So
right, well, I got. You want me to? I got a quick one.
Yeah. Right. Go ahead.
So this is I'm just kind of curious about your feelings on not even like a genre, but a region and a particular time. And I think this is going to come to no shock to you because you've heard me talk about this in the past, but I've spent a lot of this year watching Italian movies of the 70s, and in particular the subgenres of spaghetti western, poliziotacci, which are Italian crime and police movies, and giallos. And I'm just kind of curious, Goat. I mean, again, I think this is something that, we've touched on here and there. I know you like some Argento films and stuff, but I'm just kind of curious where you fall into. Are you do you ever go out of your way to watch like kind of these Italian genre films of the 70s? Obviously they're also known for doing like a lot of like Mad Max and Escape from New York ripoffs,
right?
And just like a lot of ripoff cinema in general. But I love it. Like I love all that Italian stuff. I mean, the soundtracks are always fantastic. You got these cool filmmakers like Enzo G. Castellari and Lucio Fulci and Margaretti and these guys, Argento, even Bruno Mattei, who makes like total trash but such entertaining trash that are just like complete ripoffs of movies, right? But these Poliziotteschi movies that were all kind of trying to cash in on Dirty Harry and French Connection. And then like the spaghetti westerns. Are you into any of this stuff? Like, I'm just curious, like, is that like a realm that you've visited very often? And if not, I can throw some recommendations out or just.
Like hit me up to some stuff. Cause I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. Like I very much in the early DVD era when Anchor Bay was putting a lot of shit out on DVD, like that's when I discovered Argento big time. And, like, I've seen a handful of Fulci, but I mean, pretty much like the horror stuff, like the only, like, other than like spaghetti westerns from like way earlier, like Clint Eastwood era, and a little bit of Franco Nero stuff. But I mean, I haven't really dipped my toe in, but like one thing I do like, and this is kind of like my favorite thing, is I like the ones that they make, like these kind of Italian genre films. I like the ones that they make where they're like set in the US. So like you can clearly like tell from the city and shit that like they shot this in US, and they usually shot them in New York, a lot of them. But like my favorite one is like Corrupt with Harvey Keitel and Johnny Rotten, which it's like, okay, no American would put those two guys in a movie, and it's just like this bizarre like fucking weird like nightmare. It's like basically Harvey Keitel's a corrupt cop, and he he's doing all this stuff, and he kills his partner, and this like punk kid kind of like gets some information on him and tries to blackmail him, and then he takes him hostage. But like there's like the moment that sums up that like why I love their shit so much. So it's like kind of like in the movie, all these like corrupt things Harvey Keitel has been doing. He's actually stockpiling money to buy this, like, I forget where it is, but it's like, it's like Upper West Side, whatever, like fancy apartment that like no cop would like ever really be able to afford. You know what I mean? And it's like mostly empty, but there's kind of like in the living room or whatever where the window is, there's like a chair and there's like a little table there, and then he has a record player in there. And I love it that it's like, okay, like you get it, like this is this guy's sanctuary. Like he doesn't live there full time or anything. It seems like he just visits it, and like it's just kind of like his thing that he's going to have after he retires and stuff. And like he goes there, and like Harvey Keitel sits in this chair, and he cuts a cigar, and he's smoking a nice cigar. I can't remember if he just got out of the shower or what happened, but he's like relaxing at the end of the day. And then Harvey Keitel, Mr. Brooklyn himself, he goes over to the record player. He puts a record on, which, as we know in filmmaking, like, a guy fake puts on a record on, they put in the song later. Well, this fucking Italian director has Harvey Keitel sit down and listen to, like, the most twangiest banjo country music. As Harvey Keitel sits there smoking his cigar in his fucking fancy New York apartment, he's listening to twangy banjo music, and like that's what I love. And like I kind of like it when like Choi Hart did A Better Tomorrow too, and said it in the U.S. Like I love that aspect of it, but especially Italians, it's like they never quite get it. It's like lost in translation. You know what I mean? Like I love seeing the weird like mirror universe that they put in U.S. settings and stuff in their films. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll throw out just three quick recommendations in this, because I'll just talk about the three of the ones that I've watched this year that I loved the most. One is spaghetti western, and the other two falling more into the Poliziotteschi realm, which is the Italian crime and gangster police movies. So for spaghetti westerns, I think most people, when they think of Franco Nero, obviously their mind kind of defaults to Django. And I mean, I love Django. I think it's a great. Have you seen Django, the original?
Yeah, where he drags the coffin full of the big machine gun. Yeah,
and I love it. It's like a really fun movie.
Yeah.
But, so I just recently, for the first time, watched Chioma, which is a spaghetti western he made, directed by Enzo Castellari. And in fact, all three movies I'm going to recommend are Castellari. So Castellari is a director I've just fallen like in love with even more this year. I already liked him, but I'm doing this like huge deep dive on him now. And Keoma is a 1976 spaghetti western. So Franco Nero plays the main character, who's named Keoma Shannon, and he's an ex-Union soldier. So the Civil War is recently wrapped up, and he's returning from the war back to his hometown. But the thing with Keoma is he's half white and half Indian, so he's kind of always grown up with this kind of hovering over him. People kind of that's not a good thing to be in this time.
Right.
And he kind of comes back to his hometown and discovers that while he's been gone, this kind of corrupt gangster has taken over the town, and in fact his brothers, his half brothers, are working with this gangster. So the story behind Keoma is that his dad kind of went off on this adventure and ended up having sex with this Indian, and he was born of it. And then the dad brought him back and raised him with these two brothers. The two brothers always hated him, always looked at him as this half breed that they didn't like, but the dad loved all three of them equally. And now these two brothers have joined with this this tyrant who's taken over the town. And Keoma comes and gets involved in this war with them. So this is a really interesting film because it's got this kind of strange, somewhat supernatural quality to it, to where Keoma is actually always being visited by this apparition of an old woman who is kind of, I think the credits call her the witch. But when you watch the film, you kind of get the sense that she maybe represents death, in fact, and she's constantly talking to Keoma and trying to ask him why he's going back to this town and why he's trying to get himself involved. And she's talking about he was the only survivor of this. His village is basically the Indian village where his mom was raising him was massacred, and his dad rode up and found him there as the only survivor. And this woman who represents death is saying, I saved you from that. Why are you trying to throw this away? But it's just got, like one of those kind of typical spaghetti westerns. It's got a very interesting score. I've seen a lot of people really put off by the score and kind of laugh at it, and I get it because it has this interesting soundtrack to where oftentimes the songs will literally narrate what you're seeing happen on screen. And that is very goofy and very funny. But it did make me laugh every time, and I kind of enjoyed it. But I just think it's such a magnetic performance from Franco Nero, and I actually ended up liking it more than Django. I think it's a really kind of I don't want to say it's super underappreciated because Arrow did put out a really nice big Blu-ray set of it, so clearly it has a following. It's just one that I kind of got late to. But I do think it should be more in the conversation up there with Django and with some of the better known Sergio Leone movies as a spaghetti western definitely worth checking out. So Keoma is one I definitely recommend.
Dude, it's so bizarre that you brought that up because literally 3 or 4 nights ago, I never heard of the film. 3 or 4 nights ago, my buddy Newt in a private thing was he was watching it and he was he's been a fan of it for years and he was telling me all about it and he said the exact same thing and he's it's better than Django. And I looked the trailer up the other night and it does look awesome.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, definitely check it out. And then the two Plezia Chachi ones I'll recommend. So I'll start with the Big Racket. So the Big Racket is a 1976 Enzo G. Castellari movie, which stars Fabio Testi, who is another he's I would say to me he's kind of the second actor I associate with this whole era in Italy after Franco Nero, and then Vincent Gardenia is in this as well, who you might remember from Little Shop of Horrors, and he's definitely kind of a recognizable character actor. He's the guy that ran the flower shop in the Rick Moranis version of Little Shop of Horrors. But so Fabio Testi plays this inspector who's basically trying to take down this gang of hoodlums who are doing it's called the Big Racket. They're doing an extortion racket on all these local shops. They're basically making them pay protection money. And he's trying to convince all these people that are being extorted by this gang to testify, and none of them want to. They're all very, very scared. And what this movie does, it's very interesting, is, for the first half, it's a pretty entertaining, Italian, gangster movie with this one cop trying to, get these people to, finally testify, and then just no one does want to. And then it keeps ramping up, and eventually the gang starts really taking, it out on these people and these, local shop owners. And the second half of the film turns into this bizarre revenge action movie where Fabio Testi, this slight spoiler here, but as often happens in these kind of cop movies of the 70s, he kind of gets in trouble for taking things too far, and he gets kind of kicked off the force. And he still wants to take down the mafia, so he recruits all these regular citizens who have been brutalized by the mafia. So this one character, they raped his daughter, and he recruits him. And then another guy, he got himself involved into a police shootout and ended up helping the police and shot some of the gangsters, and they retaliated by killing his wife. So Fabio Testi recruits all these regular people, and they form this kind of Dirty Dozen-esque squad to go take out the mafia. And it ends in one of the craziest, most over-the-top action shootout spectacles you'll ever see. And that is one thing that's true of a lot of these Italian movies is they're usually pretty entertaining and very fun, but a lot of them kind of have underwhelming endings. That is not the case with The Big Racket. If you love action, you will just fall in love with like the last 10 minutes of this movie, where it just turns into this gigantic warehouse shootout between the mafia and Testy and this like gang he's put together. So that's what I would definitely recommend. And then the biggest recommendation I have, my favorite Pleziotacci movie. So that for people who don't know, that's just the term for like these Italian crime movies. But my favorite one is one I definitely want to bring up because it ties into something you and I just recently did our commentary for Death Wish 3.
Yeah.
And I might have mentioned that my favorite Italian crime movie is a 1974 Enzo G. Castellari movie starring Franco Nero called Street Law. And I think I told you that, like, oh, if you haven't seen Street Law, man, you got to get around to it. So Street Law is a movie that it came out the same year as the first Death Wish. And you'll still see people saying, is that just a Death Wish ripoff? But it's one of those things, it's like Dread and the Raid, right? They were both made at the same time and kind of hit at the same time. But it's very similar. Franco Nero plays this, like, regular guy. He's a businessman. I'm not even sure we're ever really told what his business is. It doesn't matter. But he's just this regular guy who he ends up getting he's in a bank when he gets robbed. And the whole movie makes the point about how at this time in Italy, and that's why there were so many of these movies, at this time in Italy, Italy was like super dangerous. Tons of crime on the street. The mafia was just like going, it was just all over the place. A lot of shootings out in public. A lot of muggings where people would run up on a woman on a motorcycle, grab her purse and just pull it away from her and drive off. And we see all that happening at the beginning. And Franco Nero plays this regular businessman who's in a bank when he gets robbed. He tries to grab some of his money back when they're not looking, and they see that, and they brutally beat him and take him hostage. And then they take him on this like ride, as in this police chase, and then just like beat him up again and leave him. And this emasculates him and humiliates him so much that he decides to take it upon himself to track them down and try to get revenge because the police are no help. And what's interesting about this is just like we said is like what makes the first Death Wish so compelling is that this is a revenge film starring someone who's not very good at revenge.
Right.
Like Franco Nero does not just turn into a badass. In fact, he kind of keeps making the situation worse over and over and over again. And that's like pretty interesting. And then the film really gets this like unexpected emotional heart when to try and find who these gangsters are or these criminals are who beat him up. He kind of hatches this plan where he recruits this like young crook, this young like gangster, up and coming gangster, and basically is trying to force him to help him find this like bigger gang. And the thing is, he starts to discover that this young punk that he's recruited named Tommy, played by Giancarlo Prete, is actually this kid who's like kind of got a good heart. He's doing all this. He got sucked up into the criminal world. He's trying to just pay to go to school. And Franco Nero starts to kind of like him. And this interesting like relationship to develop between the two of them where, here he is working with this criminal, but he's realizing this criminal's not so bad. The criminal, this Tommy, keeps trying to convince him, like, why are you doing this? You're going to get yourself killed. You shouldn't do this. Just stay out of it. And so it becomes this interesting buddy movie between the two of them. And again, it has like a pretty exciting finale. Not as exciting as The Big Racket, but the movie overall, it's the movie that made me fall in love with Italian crime movies. I love it. I think it's one of my favorite revenge films. Awesome soundtrack, great performance from Nero. So yeah, those are 3 recommendations, and I would say definitely check those 3 out. And then who knows, maybe I'll recommend some more some other time.
Yeah, I definitely would like to actually watch all 3 of those. Street Law, like, fuck. Ever since we watched Death Wish 3, like, don't get me wrong, it was a great time. But then I was kind of like, I almost wanted to go back and like watch the original Death Wish because, like you said, like it's kind of like better when like the movie is about a guy who really doesn't know how to go about like getting revenge, and he's not really that like tough, and he kind of
Yeah. Have you ever seen Blue Ruin, the Jeremy Saulnier movie?
No, that's on my list of shame, and I've never forgotten it, and it's like always on my Netflix list, and I've never gotten around to it. Like I've literally like came like a hair away from like watching it so many times, but I do want to watch it.
Yeah, that might be the best ever like revenge gone wrong movie.
Yeah, but yeah, cool. I definitely need to check those out, and like. I don't know. I just got stuck on the Italian horror shit, and I just never really, other than like the older spaghetti westerns, like I never really like realized there was more going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, and the horror was definitely my introduction to it. I got really into like Argento and Fulci and stuff, and then by looking into them, I found out that they did some movies, or Fulci did some movies in like other genres, and then that's how I got pulled into this, and I wanted to see more of these actors. I started to really like Franco Nero. And yeah, it's just if you give me an Italian genre film of the 70s, whichever genre it is, I'm probably going to dig it.
Good. But so like I guess moving on to the next topic, Trev, I got to ask you, have you been doing the HBO movie challenge? That's what I call it. All the theatrical films that are on HBO Max. Have you kept up with them all?
And not all of them. So unfortunately, this is a shame for me. Like, this was just, I screwed up on my timing, but I didn't see Judas and the Black Messiah.
Oh, wow.
Which I wanted to do, and I didn't. And then I didn't watch the Jared Leto one because no.
Wait, you gotta expand on that. What's going on?
It just looked, I don't know, it looked like a movie that time traveled in from like the early 90s, and that's kind of like what I heard in terms of the vibe as well. And nothing I heard made me like super excited to watch it. And Jared Leto is just an actor that at this point I'm just so like not on the Jared Leto train right now. I didn't know if I could deal with him like in that movie. So I don't know. I mean, you can tell me in a moment if I was wrong. But in terms of the ones that have come out, I did Wonder Woman 84, which I did not like very much. Me and my friends watched Tom and Jerry on a movie night as a goof, and it was complete trash. I watched Godzilla vs. Kong, and I did like that one. I liked that more than I expected to, because I hadn't really liked the legendary MonsterVerse movies up until that point, and that was the first one that I just had complete unabashed fun with. And then I didn't really like Mortal Kombat either.
Wow.
I was pretty let down by that. So I'm not really holding this again. It's just one of those things, I think, where a lot of the movies they had slated to come out are just movies that aren't really doing much for me. But, I'm looking forward to some of the upcoming ones. I actually, I don't know how you felt. I really thought I was kind of nervous about The Conjuring 3 since it's not Juan directing it.
Yeah.
But I thought the trailer actually looked pretty compelling. I thought it looked like cool. It did look different than the other ones. And I thought I know it's just a trailer, but it looked better than I was expecting, and obviously I'm still, I'm still bummed that Dune is probably going to HBO Max, but that's the one I'm looking forward to the most because I'm a huge Dune fan. So,
yeah.
But yeah, those are the ones I've seen, and those were my thoughts. The only one I really, really liked is Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah, like I'm trying to watch them all. I've seen them all so far except Mortal Kombat. I haven't watched it. I was actually really hyped for months about Mortal Kombat, and then the trailer came out, and I was kind of like, I don't know. And then then everybody was like, there were so many people, I guess obviously it's our demographic, guys our age, Trev. There were so many people it's like slobbering for weeks. Oh, Mortal Kombat, like people even saying like they're going to go see it in the theater and all that. And it was like the day it came out, everybody's like, oh yeah, it sucks. And it was like, it kind of killed my enthusiasm. Like I'll definitely watch it before it leaves the 30-day window or whatever. But like, yeah, it kind of, like if anything, like it just made me want to go back and rewatch the original goofy ass movie.
And I still, the original holds up. I watched it recently and still dug it. And I mean, honestly, like Mortal Kombat Annihilation is complete garbage, but it's entertaining garbage, and that's what I thought was unfortunately missing from the new one. Like the new one was that kind of bad where I just found it like boring, and I wish it was like worse, because sometimes you want a movie to be so bad it just becomes fun, and I didn't think this one did that. Yeah,
like I mean, there's no reason to talk about Wonder Woman, but I actually really like that Jared Leto one, and it's kind of funny because it looked like well, first of all, the movie it looked like in the trailers, like I'm up for that. That's cool. But what I liked about it, and I'm kind of surprised that like people didn't really like give it like a little bit better marks than they did, was like without ruining everything, like it's a movie that like I would say for probably like. It's more of a meditation on those types of films than it is like that actual type of film. So it's like, for straight up for like the first half, it is what you think it's going to be. Like, oh, somebody's doing these murders. We got to catch him. Oh, we think it's this weird guy. Blah, blah, blah. But like the second half kind of diverts, and especially, again, don't want to ruin anything because I don't think a lot of people have seen this movie yet. But it's like it kind of goes in a direction you wouldn't expect maybe. And I felt like, it kind of had a good, like, it's really more of like a character drama than it is a murder thriller, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And like I don't.
Character drama about Denzel or about Jared Leto?
Honestly, the Jared Leto, like he's not that important to the story. Honestly, I don't want to give spoilers away, but it's really the process of the character drama. I would say that the two characters that matter the most are Denzel and Rami Malek. So like Denzel was kind of like a former disgraced detective, which like we don't really know why he's disgraced at the beginning of the movie, and we find out. and then Rami's like kind of the current hotshot that actually like detective that actually replaced Denzel in the department. So he kind of like brings him in, like it's just a coincidence. Denzel happens to like they kind of meet, and like this murder spree is going on. So he kind of brings Denzel in, you know, because like, you know, and everybody's warned him like stay away from Denzel. You know, he's a fuck up. He's, you know, Denzel's kind of like left the major like LA area, and he's kind of just like a lame ass sheriff out in the sticks now and stuff. And it's like, you know, because it's like the movie kind of has a theme, and it's like, it's almost the way it wraps up, it's almost like more in the vein of something like Zodiac than it is like David Fincher's Seven, if you know what I mean. And that's what I liked about it. Like, I was like, oh, I kind of didn't really expect it was going to go in this direction. And like, you know, I mean, it's good that people didn't really like spill the beans of like the ending and what's happens and stuff. But it's like, I'm kind of surprised everybody's like, oh yeah, that's just like serial killer. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, I thought it had a pretty interesting conclusion. So like, I mean, by no means like, you know, break down doors to go see it. But if it ever comes, you know, which eventually it will come back on HBO, like, I don't think it's going to like, I mean, Jared Leto's like definitely like doing his weird guy act that you expect him to do, but it's like the movie goes in a more interesting direction. And for like, it really sucks, man, because I think the best one that's been on there so far is Judas and the Black Messiah. And I think it was honestly just like I rewatched Get Out for the first time, you know, since it was out. And like maybe that weekend, a few days later, I watched Judas and the Black Messiah. And like, yeah, man, like, dude, I am all about this pairing. And I mean, it was very kind of incidental in Get Out, but like, dude, I think Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, like, dude, I think they're the closest thing we have to a modern day version of, you know, like De Niro and Harvey Keitel, or you know, like maybe even De Niro Pacino. Like, I think these guys, you know, they're still pretty young guys. Like, I would love to see these guys continue to be paired up in movies for like a very long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, like, we'll see, because, like, you know, we talked about how are the kind of films that you want to see them get paired up in going to keep being made. How long can they just completely avoid only getting swept up into blockbuster land? Lakeith Stanfield in particular seems to be doing a pretty good job of avoiding that. And that, like, you know, because I know Kaluuya, you know, is in the Black Panther franchise. I don't know, maybe I'm forgetting something, but I don't feel like Lakeith has really jumped into like a giant franchise yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, probably wouldn't you say his biggest movie box office wise was Knives Out, where he just kind of played a supporting role? Like, yeah,
right. And I've seen people say, like, is he going to be in the sequel? It's like, well, it doesn't really seem like it would make sense for him to be, because I can't imagine every murder is going to be in like the same town. You know?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I do like both of them as actors, and it'll be. I agree. I haven't even seen that film, but. They're definitely both, you know, I like with Lakeith, you know, I like too that he definitely seems to be, you know, he made something like Uncut Gems, a smaller role at a time where he probably didn't need to do that movie, you know, and it felt like he just wants to be in interesting stuff. And then you look at something like, why is the name escaping me? God, his really weird movie, the Boots Riley one.
I always want to say it's The Hate You Give, but it's not. It's damn.
You know, it's just bothering me that because it's a movie I liked a lot too, and it's
and it's like another movie I keep wanting to see, and I haven't gotten around to. It's like Sorry something, right?
Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah, Sorry to Bother You. That's exactly what it is.
Thank you, said that. So that movie's awesome. But that just shows that, like, he wants to do just like really cool, interesting stuff, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, like I don't because like honestly, as far as because like, you know, that's one of my main things is like I bitch all the time is like I don't really see, you know, like we kind of had this like period of the last 15 years or so where it's like we're just all about like our younger actors coming up. It's just like we only care about the ones that are like of the movie star quality, like, you know, like a Chris Hemsworth or a Channing Tatum or something like. And I don't think we've really been focusing on like the actors. And like I was really like kind of blown away when I looked up like it's like Daniel Kaluuya. He was like, he got famous. He's a British guy, which I didn't even know for the longest time, but he's like a British guy who got famous doing a play that I believe was about a boxer. And like, he kind of like, you know, parlayed that into like a couple little film roles, and then he got Get Out, and he's kind of been rolling since then. I didn't know Lakeith Stanfield. I didn't even know he's like actually a musician. He's like a rapper and stuff. And I'm just like, for these two guys, I mean, one's like, you know, like I guess probably the you know, I don't know what the British equivalent of Broadway is, but he's like pretty much one is like pretty much like a British Broadway type stage actor who's made the transition to film, and another guy is like a musician turned actor. And I'm like, there's just something about those guys, like the little bit of time they had together and Get Out, or like my favorite parts of that movie. And then obviously they have a ton of scenes together in Judas and the Black Messiah. But it's like, yeah, Judas and the Black Messiah is great because it's really like a chronicle of these two guys, and they're both like completely different, but like they're completely interesting. And like, I haven't really seen enough of the films of 2020 to even make any sort of comment about like who won the Oscars and who whatever. But like, it would not surprise me. Like if Judas and the Black Messiah would have won Best Picture, like it wouldn't have surprised me at all. Like it was that like powerful a movie. And like, I mean, obviously, like, you know, it's a film dealing with stuff that happened in the Black Panther Party and stuff, but like I kind of loved it in a way that it was super powerful, it was super emotional, it wasn't preachy. I didn't feel like I was watching like a modern preachy political type film. It really kind of like took me back and reminded me of like the 90s, like when like Spike Lee made Malcolm X and all that, just that type of filmmaking, that like really, I don't know, just like gritty emotional biopic, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But so like, also, too, like, I know James Wan didn't do Conjuring 3 because he's also got I'm kind of glad he didn't, because, like, I think, like, within a month or two of after Conjuring 3 comes out, he's got his own original horror movie coming out.
Malignant, yeah. Yeah, and anytime Wan has like a new, and like that's pretty cool to have a new Wan movie that we know like nothing about. You know? Yeah. There's even been like people like there's been theorizing that it might be a giallo actually based on some things he said, but people don't even know if that's the case. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that like the same year we have a James Wan like new horror film we don't know anything about, and Edgar Wright is coming out with his first like horror film with the Last Night in Soho. Which is like a kind of a horror thriller from what I understand. So
I didn't even know he had a new movie coming out.
Yeah,
that's weird. Yeah, but I mean, not to devolve because we've already gone long a lot here, but I gotta say, like for the first time ever, I am like the most high on streaming, because like everybody kind of complained that like, oh, all these streaming services kind of came out and like now we gotta have all these subscriptions, expensive, but like taking that equation out of it, like I gotta say, like I know these HBO movies we're talking about, these are kind of like theatrical movies that they just put there, but like stuff like the Snyder Cut and it's like some of the stuff that Netflix is doing now, like I kind of like where streaming is going. There's like a lot of like alternative like content that doesn't really fit into like a traditional TV or like even like a Showtime or HBO type situation, and doesn't even like fit into like a theatrical mode. So it's like lately, like I've just been watching a mix of movies on Blu-ray, like obscure movies that have been re-released on Blu-ray. There's a lot of obscure movies that float around on cable, like I've kind of realized on these kind of cheaper movie channels that are out there. And then like the streaming shit, like I have to say, it's like I think this is the best time, because it's like we have these different ways to watch movies, but they're actually kind of like they all hold different content. So it's like I'm actually more of the way of like I think shit is like brighter and better than it's ever been. You know what I mean? Like
it's the plus and minus, right? Like I agree that there's a lot of interesting stuff. It's like you take the good with the bad. Like the bad is obviously what we were just saying, to where there just is something. I just saw someone tweet this, and I can't remember the exact wording, but they were making the point, and I agree, and I think you agree, that a movie that debuts on streaming will just never have the kind of pop cultural clout that a movie with a theatrical release will have. And that's true of even a movie that comes out in theaters and bombs is still kind of more remembered by society than a movie that does well on streaming, I think. You know, because a movie that comes out and fails, still a lot of money was put into advertising it. You know, you had the trailer playing in theaters for months, then you have all these TV spots, then you see, well, back in the day, you'd see like the newspaper ads, and you'd see the posters out and about, and these movies would like kind of hang on in the consciousness, even if they didn't do very well. Right. But then I think of like these Netflix films that people genuinely like, something like The Perfection, which was like a Netflix horror movie I loved, or something like, Mike Flanagan's Hush, or The Apostle with Dan Stevens. I don't know if you've seen The Night Comes for Us, this amazing martial arts movie on Netflix. This like super. It's from the Raid team. And it's got Joe Taslim. It's like the super. Oh, and Iko Uwais is in it as well. It's a super bloody, super brutal kung fu movie that's just the shit. And it's like these movies are awesome, and then like no one talks about them after like a month. You know,
I know.
And they're always there on Netflix. They're always there to watch, but there's nothing about the Netflix algorithm which brings them back up to the top, you know, anytime. So I don't know. It's just, I think, like, you know, I think what streaming services like Netflix have to do is kind of figure out a way to kind of replicate what HBO and Showtime and Cinemax would do back in the day of kind of reminding you of these films just by having them on. And I think Shudder has this clever. You know, when you first log into Shudder, the first thing comes up is Shudder TV, which is just this channel that's showing a random movie. And, you know, you might be like, oh, okay, I forgot about that movie. Maybe I'll sit here and watch it, or at least that reminds me to check it out later. If not that, then at least do a thing where, like, at the top of the Netflix algorithm, every month, pick, like, 10 kind of older films and have it be, like, kind of a memory lane kind of thing or something, right? Like, these are 10 movies we want to remind you of, just to kind of, like, let things cycle in and out of the consciousness.
Yeah, and it's like, I saw a video essay on YouTube, and like it was somebody, it was just like YouTube recommended, and I wish I would have subscribed to the guy's channel, but it was kind of like a younger sounding guy, and he's doing a video essay, and he talked about there was a film, I want to say it was a Korean film, a drama that came out on Netflix streaming, like with no fanfare. Like this movie it was just one of their dump, you know, hey, we got fucking whatever, 20 movies coming out this month. Nobody talked about it. And it was like, it literally took like 6 to 7 months. And like all these critics were raving about this movie. And it was like, and all this thing, he was just like, it took like all this time for like people to discover it and get behind it. And kind of what he was saying, it's kind of like what I feel like is true. It's like, he was saying like it's up to us to make the film culture now. Cause like what you said, like the traditional ways of releasing a film, for better or worse, you know what I mean? Like it created a film culture. Well, that doesn't really exist as strongly as it does now. So it's like literally up to like, in a weird way, the fans to dictate what the film culture is now. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like the kind of that thing of like, yeah, we kind of have to use like word of mouth now more than ever to get some of the shit, you know, like seen and known about. Like
that's like kind of cool, but also still frustrating, right?
Yeah.
And like frustrating because of the way that it just seems like younger generations, each generation cares less and less about cinema as like an art form. So it sometimes feels like we're fighting a losing battle to that to a certain degree. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Actually, did you have more about this?
No. That was it. It was just, I was just going to say like it kind of like going back to what I said, it's like, you can like, if you keep an eye of like these older movies that are coming out on Blu-ray, and then you keep an eye like what's on TV, and then you keep an eye on like what's available on these streaming services, like it's not really the lap over that you think it is. So it's like, I know people are like going streaming only, or some people, you know, there's like some people that don't really stream a lot and they just buy physical movies, but it's like, as a film like fan, and especially as somebody who doesn't mind watching older movies, you kind of have to like dip your toe into every pond to really see where all the content is. You know what I mean?
This is perfect because it fits right in. It goes right into my next point. My main topic I want, and this can be brief now because we've already kind of hit on it. But the next thing I kind of want to ask you about is something we mentioned last time you recorded. And I just was wondering if you want to talk a little bit about how, as we're getting older, right, we're starting to realize that we're never going to see everything we wanted to see.
Yeah.
I was just kind of thinking about talking about how do you prioritize at this point, which movies you actually like watch, you know, in terms of especially like older stuff you haven't seen. Like, what's your protocol now in terms of, you know, is there anything where you're just like, nah, that's probably going to get bumped off the list forever? Or, you know, how do you kind of go about it? Because I found myself, I just kind of alluded to it, right? So what I've been doing this year in particular, and like probably last year this started big time, is I'll just get on these runs where I'll get into like, oh, I'm going to really visit like a certain genre for a while now. And I use that as an opportunity to catch up on stuff in that genre. So like this year I've been watching like a lot, like I said, I did a big dive on a bunch of Italian stuff. And then for a moment there, I kind of went back. I was like, you know what? I really like Jackie Chan. I haven't watched Jackie Chan in a while. And then I went down this like giant Jackie Chan like rabbit hole, you know, and started watching a bunch of his stuff again. And that's what's happening with me, right? I was just, instead of bouncing all around, there'll be like one actor or one director or one genre, which I'll kind of concentrate on for like a month or two. So what's your like take nowadays? How are you prioritizing what to watch when you're realizing, shit, I'm not going to see everything I want to see, and there's just so much content now?
Yeah, like it's really crazy, and then like to the point that I feel guilty that we subscribe to so much shit that I never watch. But I'm like always watching something. You know what I mean? Like it's not. So, like, I'm going to count this as one of my topics, too. Like, my last topic, Trev, I was going to say, how has your taste changed? And I was, like, kind of talking about, like, what do you like now that you didn't like? Or, what do you gravitate towards now? Because, like, you know, like, you're an older person than you were. I mean, everybody is. But, like, you're, you know, like, you change, like, you know, what your not what your taste is, like what you really think is good, but like you crave different things. So like I'm gonna count that topic as part of this topic because it's kind of like what you're asking me, and it's really weird. So like I kind of do like the rabbit hole thing of what you're saying with like either directors. I mean just like we said before, like I watched Knives Out and I'm just like watching that and thinking about that movie and what I liked and what I didn't like about that movie. That immediately be like, you know, instead of just moving on to my next piece of whatever, like I was just like, okay, now I'm going to watch this guy's other movie. Cause like, I really like, I want to know more about this guy. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's kind of like that, man. It's like, so first of all, like I have all these avenues, like I was talking about. I have literally, oh geez, man, I have probably 70 Blu-rays that I've bought in the last year that are like, I have sitting out in like haven't watched piles, you know, and so like I kind of mix it up by format in a weird way. So like not to feel guilty that I'm not like, you know what I mean, neglecting anything, because all like literally all these things are costing me money. Like I really wouldn't want to give any of these avenues up, like TV, disc, or streaming. So it's like I kind of rotate by that. But then sometimes like I'll get like you said, like I'll be whatever, like I'll be like I want to watch more of this. So like recently I watched a couple Sharon Stone movies. Watched that movie Scissors we talked about. Then I watched the other night I watched what is it called? I think it's called Last Stand or Last Dance, the one where she's like on death row. So like I go by directors, whatever, but also too like I've kind of always had this thing, Trev, where like I don't do well. Like every now and then I'll get on like a little kick, and I'd say horror is the only one where I'll watch like maybe like 4 straight horror movies, and then I'll have my fill. But like I gotta rotate, and it's weird. Like I gotta rotate by genre. I gotta rotate by whether movies are new or old, because I don't really like getting stuck in too much of a time period. Like I would say definitely 80s, 90s, early 2000s are my sweet spot, you know, to retreat back into when I'm not watching brand new movies, you know, new release movies. So it's like, I always have this weird thing, and going to the theater was exactly the same way. Was I always got frustrated. Like when I was a kid, you know, like summer movie season came and it was like, no problem. Like, let's just go see an action movie every single week. And I was fine. But like, I can't do that as an adult. Like, okay, I watch something big and dumb. Cause like, if I only stay in like one genre, then I start hating the other stuff. So it's like, if I only watch like independent, kind of thoughtful, you know what I mean? Lack of a better term, kind of smart stuff. Then I start really hating the dumb, like, fucking, you know what I mean? like if I just sit around and watch art house movies, which like I probably could do for a while, like then I'll really just be like, what's all this Marvel bullshit? Why are they always, you know what I mean? Like, so like I rotate, man. Like I really like, I pretty much go from like bigger, like newer stuff to like something small and intimate, especially whenever I like right after I watch a big dumb movie. And even if I enjoy it, like you know, we watched Godzilla versus Kong a week ago. Really enjoyed the movie, didn't have anything to really whatever, but I immediately followed that up with Knives Out. So it's like that's really what it's like to me. It's that constant rotation, and I would get frustrated, like especially back when like Movie Pass was a thing, and I was like going to like, you know, at least 2 movies a week again, which is like what I always did growing up, because there was enough movies to see that way. Like I always got frustrated. There'd be like certain months where like 3 action movies would come out. It's like, well, that's great, and I love action movies. I want to see all 3 of these action movies. I don't want to do them in a fucking row. You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, it's like it's like I bounce back and forth between like the kind of the big budget, kind of like simple, kind of fast paced stuff, and then I'll do like a slow paced drama, or maybe throw in a comedy. Like I always need that, like, kind of, because if I kind of break that rotation, like I get out of movie watching and then like I'm not as engaged in it. Like that's what I've noticed.
It's interesting that you say the thing about rotation, because I've actually been thinking about that, and just to your point, like this fact that I have all these streaming services with these like ever-growing watch lists that I keep kind of neglecting and feeling bad about it. And I was just recently thinking that, and I've flirted with this idea before, and I've never committed to it. And I was like, you know what, this summer when I'm gonna have like a lot more free time than I have recently, I'm gonna try and actually commit to this and like make this rule and like put it into my phone like a kind of a note or a list. and say like what I watch next has to be determined to where, okay, now I do something off my Netflix watch list, now something from my Amazon watch list, now something from Hulu, now something from Shudder, and then a Blu-ray I own and haven't watched yet. You know, and actually like follow that order and just tell myself like, no, if you watched Hulu last time, this time you got to go on Amazon and pick something, you know, and just keep weeding away these watch lists. But like I also said last time, I think I mentioned it's just I finally am just coming more to peace with the idea that I'm not going to see everything I want to see. That's an idea that kind of frightened me when I was younger, and it was this idea of, you know, just trying to take in like everything, right? I love horror, so I better see every 80s horror movie and you know, and all that stuff. And just now I'm finally just kind of accepted that's not the case. And it's just like, there's just some things you're not going to see, and that's fine. You know, I'm letting it like not bother me as much anymore. And then finally, I'll just say, to speak to your question about how has my taste changed. It's interesting because you kind of alluded to that too, in that this has been going on for a couple of years now, but if you had told like 20-year-old me and maybe even 30-year-old me that 40-year-old me would have not seen Solo, or would have not watched Justice League,
right,
or wouldn't have seen Jurassic World 2, that would have like, I'd be like, no way. Like, so definitely, like, you know, I've always, you know, I feel like I've always had a pretty eclectic movie taste, and I've liked, you know, a little bit of every genre, maybe except, I mean, you know, rom-coms isn't really my thing, but but I've always mixed like the big action with the art house and with the smaller dramas and the character pieces and pieces like that. But I've really found myself more detached from like blockbustery kind of stuff recently, in that there's a few franchises I like, and I'll stick with Marvel just because it's generally consistent and, you know, not all great, but at least decent. You know, there's some other like, you know, directors and stuff I'll still be with, but like, if something like doesn't look at all very interesting to me anymore, or like that compelling, I'm not just gonna go see it just to see it, which is what I used to do. Right? Like, oh, every big summer movie, I better check that out. And like now, I just kind of don't care. You know, I'll skip a lot of these big franchises. I'm not watching any Fast and the Furious movies anymore. I don't give a shit about some of these other upcoming like big deals. You know, I'll skip DC movies if they don't seem interesting. It's just like whatever. I've got plenty of other stuff to watch, and I'd say that's the biggest change in my taste over the years. I think maybe the only change is that I've become more willing to not bother to see something just because I feel like it's part of the bigger, you know, national conversation about the biggest summer blockbuster or whatever. Like, it's not worth it to bother with it.
Well, like Trev, like, don't you think a little bit, because this is kind of the conclusion I've came to with like the big blockbuster type stuff, don't you feel like a little bit of, because like I remember when a blockbuster movie was like a big fucking thing. Like I remember like when I was growing up, like towards the late 80s to very early 90s, there was like 4 to 6 true blockbuster type huge budget movies every summer, and then there was maybe 3 or 4 that were kind of like smaller movies masquerading as a big movie. And then by the time I graduated high school, like the mid 90s to late 90s, then it seemed like there was like maybe double of that. Like there was like 12 blockbusters a year, and then there was like the blockbuster that creeped out in March or January. And like now I feel like literally half the movies that come out in like, you know, in a theatrical set, well, not even theatrical set, even at home, like Netflix, like half the movies out are like these huge budget movies, and they're all like, I don't want to say they're like generic in a way that they're all exactly the same, but like they're kind of reaching the same kind of thrill level, and they're always trying to excite you, and like,
no, that's the case, and there's no variety, right? I mean, like the kind of movies that were blockbuster movies when we were younger, there was such a variety there. You know, you think of like an era when a movie like Con Air could be a blockbuster. Right. You know, that was like a movie that was like, people were excited for that movie in the summer. You know, and that's like a dumb B movie. You know, I don't get me wrong, I love it, but that's what I mean. Like, or a movie like Speed. Can you imagine something like Speed, just this kind of singular weird movie about a guy on a bus with a bomb on it, being sold as like a blockbuster today? Because like, it couldn't be, because people would have to look at it as like a franchise starter. I mean, I know it got a sequel, but obviously that's more of a case of like coming after the point. But yeah, all these movies today they are kind of the same. Like I can admit that now. You know, we're just getting fed a lot of the same bullshit. And I mean, some of it's good. I mean, I still enjoy some of it. I'm not saying I'm immune to like the joys of just CGI nonsense every once in a while, but I'm definitely more selective than I used to be.
Yeah, and I think possibly CGI has created like a feeling or a level of sameness, because like if you look at like a time period of like 1985 to 1995, it's like, yeah, like a blockbuster movie could be Back to the Future, or it could be Jurassic Park, or it could be Terminator 2. Like, you know what I mean? Like those are all like wildly different movies. Well, I mean, I guess maybe Terminator 2 and Back to the Future are all about time travel, but like, you know what I mean? Like they're like different tones or different feels, and I feel like you want to go from like 2011 to 2021, everything is just a big giant CGI monster, robot, or special powered superhero like destroying city blocks. You know what I mean?
It's all IP exploitation too.
Yeah.
I mean, Back to the Future and Terminator, these were filmmakers trying to make the next big thing, not just trying to make the next installment in something that already exists.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the bummer. I mean, this is like, now we're definitely trotting in well-worn territory, but I mean, it's really sad that you just don't see like original scripts like Back to the Future being pushed as a potential blockbuster today. That's always going to be the thing that sucks. And I mean, those are the kind of movies that maybe we'll get on streaming, but they're not going to enjoy that kind of cultural clout.
Right. No, yeah, I agree 100%. And it's like that thing of like, it's kind of, until recently when like streaming really like in my mind kind of started to differentiate itself. It's like, okay, streaming is like, yeah, if you want to, you can sit down and you can turn on Disney Plus. You can watch Avengers Endgame if you want to. But it's like streaming has kind of become this like, to me, it's like streaming has become this thing that's completely different than like the theatrical market or like the home video market. Like, the movies that used to be made for home video, like they were a certain kind of thing. And like, I think streaming's like, I think in a weird way is streaming's becoming the alternative to, like, as much as people think it's going to replace the theatrical experience, like, maybe it will, maybe it won't, we'll just have to see. But I think it's also, too, it's like streaming is becoming that place where, like, the antidote to the box, to the big budget, like, multiplex poison, you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, because there's a lot of weird shit. Like, I'm really surprised some of the weird, like, even if you look at the HBO Max, like, whatever originals, like, these are like such weird shows that I don't even think they would have ever like tried them on just regular HBO, the channel. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. Like I'm just glad that we have these like different like avenues.
Yeah.
Which I gotta say, like going on the big budget thing. This was like my next topic, Trev. If you're ready to move on.
Yeah, of course.
This is just more like a quick like, okay, what do you think about this? Trev, what is your opinions or feelings about Marvel Studios' Blade?
Boy, that is a tough one. Actually, I don't know how to feel about it because this is strange because I'm gonna probably sound like a hypocrite to a certain degree here because I'm one of those people that always talk about like I don't really get like why people insist that Deadpool needs to be R. Or like, and I was always like, yeah, it's cool that like Logan's R, but I mean, like X-Men comic books have never really been R, So I definitely think it's true that like it just like those, right? Like Blade comes from the comic books. Blade are probably more in the realm of PG or PG-13. So there's no reason why a Blade movie can't be PG-13 and probably be effective. And like I said, there's a couple Marvel movies I'm not hot on, but they haven't made like an absolute dog shit movie yet. They've made some like kind of, they were like, oh, that's not so great, but they're fairly consistent. So I have every reason to believe Blade will be a good movie. I like Mahershala Ali. I think that's a cool choice to play Blade. But that all said, Blade, it's just strange how much, and I know I'm not alone on this, how much Wesley Snipes' version of Blade is so imprinted into my mind. And it being like, especially, the first two, I'm less said about Blade Trinity, probably the better. But Blade 1 and 2, it's just like, that's the platonic ideal of a Blade movie. And just knowing that the MCU version is not going to be willing to be that kind of down and dirty and that kind of revolutionary and just that cool, right? And also just the fact that it's not going to be allowed to just be Blade. Everything MCU now is really a piece of a puzzle. Nothing feels singular anymore. Everything's the next puzzle piece, and that's not really what I want to see from Blade either. Maybe that'll be the interesting part of it, is seeing him interact with other characters, but I don't know. So I don't know. I'm going to have to wait and see till I see like some trailers or whatever. It's really hard to say right now. I definitely have mixed feelings about it. It's not what I'm excited about other than the casting. But I do kind of wish that like I definitely would be more excited if we were getting like a Blade kind of legacy sequel with Snipes coming back, especially like wash the flavor of that third entry out and let him maybe have a better finale with that character.
Yeah, like, I just was curious, because I have such strange feelings about this, and here's why, and it's like, first of all, this seems like the movie that they don't really want to make. But
well, it doesn't. Wasn't this the case? Am I wrong in that it really was Mahershala Ali coming to them with like the idea, and them just being like, "Well, you don't turn him down right now." I think that's. I think that might be true. I think he might have been like, "I want to play Blade," and then being like, "Okay."
It felt like to me it was like a placeholder thing of like, you know, like, because, you know, he had already worked with them and everything, and like I hadn't heard that he had came to them, but it seemed like to me it was just like, it was like they used him as like almost like a pawn to like prop themselves up to be like, because he was like coming really off like his hottest, like his couple roles, and he got nominations at different award ceremonies and stuff, and it was almost just like, we need Mahershala Ali because like we've already had him, and he played like whatever, like he actually played a very like a character a lot of people are fascinated with, but he was on one of those Netflix shows, and as much as we wanted you to believe those were part of the MCU, like now maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Oh, and I feel like he, you know, it was like, we just need to hold on to this guy because he's blown up since even we worked with him. And it's like, oh, like he just did that that Alita Battle Angel movie where he wore sunglasses and looked just like Blade. So I felt like as much as like I would enjoy him in the role, like that's kind of the laziest casting. But I'm like, okay, whatever. You got an idea for this version that you're going to do. And it's like, then nothing happens. It's like basically 2 years, it's crickets. He walks out on a stage and they say, oh, Mahershala Ali is the MCU's Blade. Okay, great. And then there was like kind of like the dust up of like, of course, all the minions of Kevin Feige in the MCU came out to defend him, where he was like, you know, we haven't really, you know, like, first of all, I don't believe for a second that they will ever produce an R-rated Deadpool. I mean, that's neither here nor there, but like he came out and he made the comments about Blade, and it's like, well, we've never, you know, had a problem not making the movie that we want to make. And I'm like, oh, okay, that really means nothing one way or another. Like, I don't believe for a second that you won't be furiously chopping and editing and toning down to not be a PG-13. But I mean, again, that's neither here nor there. But it's like, my thing where I'm at with this movie is like, I almost don't want it to happen because they've waited around so much that Mahershala, he's in his late 40s now by the time they got this thing shot, because it just came out, they still don't have a script, and they even said, we're not rushing on this one, whatever that means to them. So I'm like, why do you have this guy who's going to be pushing 50 when Wesley's sitting there? Wesley's only like 11 years older than him. Like, just do one more Blade movie with Wesley. Like,
well, that was the thing too. So what you were just saying about how them just trying to lock in Mahershala Ali, was there any part of you, because I thought this too, was there any part of you that also felt like they made that announcement as kind of just like a ploy to shut Wesley Snipes up? Because like, in the build up to that for like a year, right, he was just, every interview he was giving, he was talking about how like, oh, you know, I've been talking to Marvel, there's still this possibility. And I feel like, who knows what the truth of that was, but like when they made that announcement with Mahershala Ali, that was like the end of that, right? It was just like, okay, that's not the case. We're moving on without Wesley Snipes. And it just felt like them finally, like, having to make it, they weren't going to come out and just say, like, look, we're not going to work with this guy, because maybe they felt like that's rude or something.
Right.
But it really just felt like they were like, no, we're putting a nail on that. You know, we're moving on with our own thing. But as you said, they announced it so far in advance. Yeah. Blade doesn't fit into like, he clearly doesn't fit into like their current phase plans, because everything they're doing is building to this like kind of cosmic stuff, or leading to this like, you know, young Avengers with all these new kind of iterations and younger heroes. And Blade definitely feels like the odd man out. Like, Blade really feels like it should be a Disney Plus series like Moon Knight. Yeah. But it's just like they already announced it as a film, and you know, Mahershala Ali seems like, maybe, I was gonna say he seems too big to be in a series, but then again, Oscar Isaac's playing Moon Knight, so I don't know. That's all like nebulous now, anyways. But yeah, I don't know. It felt calculated in a way.
It left such a, I don't even want to say a bad taste in my mouth. It's just like weird. Like, what the hell are you guys doing here? That like I've kind of like come to the thing where it's like, and like, you know a lot more about comic books and stuff than I do, Trev, even. But it's like, it was always my impression that Wesley Snipes and Stephen Norrington, with the first Blade film, they created this version of Blade that was like completely different than what he was in the comics. And now Marvel Comics has just done that thing where like, oh yeah, this is what Blade is in the comics. And like, I don't really want to see Mahershala Ali play like some weird ripoff of the Wesley Snipes Blade. Like, if anything, I wanted to go back to like how Blade was in like Tomb of Dracula in the 70s, because like that's how I knew him. I knew him as the guy with like just like a green blouse on, basically,
I
and
mean,
and a
that'd be awesome
bandolier.
that'd be awesome if they made like a '70s blaxploitation Blade movie with Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, they're definitely not gonna do anything that cool. You know?
Yeah, I just don't want to see the look or feel or anything be like the Wesley movies. You know what I mean? It's like if you weren't willing to.
You're definitely right. Like that's the thing about comic books now is everything is like fed into the current comic versions of all of the Marvel characters are more in line with like what the movie versions are. Like that's so informed everything, and I get that. I get it from a business perspective, but yeah, you're absolutely right that in the comic books, Blade certainly turned more into the Wesley Snipes version after that movie, and that's definitely what we'll be getting another iteration of that.
Yeah,
it's also just Sticky Fingers erasure. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Why not bring him back?
Well, you know, I don't even know like the behind the scenes whatever, but I'm about 3/4 of the way through WandaVision, and now there's all these rumors about Spider-Man movies. We could just have a scene where Mahershala Ali, Wesley Snipes, and Sticky Fingers are just staring at each other in a room, not knowing what happens.
Yeah. I mean, there is a level of truth to that. Like you said, as a joke, but I have had the thought about how like if they're really being truthful and committing to this multiverse idea,
Yeah.
I think there's a possibility they might allow Wesley Snipes to have a scene as like his Blade at some point in something. But I'm with you in that. I would just kind of like to see him do another one. I think he still could pull it off. And like I said, I don't know how you feel about Blade Trinity, but I don't necessarily hate Blade Trinity. It's just it's a really big come down after 1 and 2, and it doesn't feel like it should be the finale to that series.
No, I agree 1,000%. To me, it was like when I saw it, and like, you know, like, I mean, I had the poster up in my room for years just because it was a cool Blade poster, not necessarily because it was for that movie. But yeah, like I saw it, and I did have the feeling like, oh, this is a bit of a letdown. This is a bit of a step down. But I didn't feel like it was such a death blow that they couldn't recover with a 4th film.
Yeah. And I want to be clear too. I actually, and I don't know if you agree, Go, but like from everything I know, like I'm fully willing to admit that that's pretty much all Wesley Snipes' fault too. Like he was the problem with that film. I mean, I understand it's not the best script in the world, but it sounds like every problem Wesley Snipes had, he raised after they were already on set filming, and it's like he was a producer on that. He could have got involved and you know raised those issues ahead of time, and I'm sure Goyer would have listened because they were getting along at that point. And for him to just turn into like a total dick while making the film, you know, that didn't help matters any. And all his stories about how he was so lazy they had to CGI his eyes opening in that one scene. And,
oh god,
70% of that movie is actually his double. That's why you see him from behind most of the time. And yeah, so I mean, maybe there's that part of me that says like maybe he didn't deserve another go around with it after that. But then later when he came around and wanted to make another one, then you're like, well, okay, maybe he just learned his lesson and let's give him another shot.
Yeah, I mean, time passed. I mean, I've definitely heard the stories about how bad he was, but it's like, as much as what, first of all, the movie didn't lose money, so there's no reason to like, you know, cry about that. It's just the law of diminishing return. And also too, New Line restructured in a big way and changed a lot as a studio. If it would have kind of retained the same structure, I'm sure there would have been a Blade 4. But like my thing is like, you can complain about Wesley Snipes all you want, and like, yeah, I agree the script wasn't the best or whatever, but it's like, I don't see how Wesley Snipes' behavior makes the movie look 10 times more drab than the previous films are. I don't know how Wesley Snipes' behavior exposes the fact that you're just blatantly shooting in Vancouver. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
also, that is still in my opinion, the worst cinematic Dracula ever. Dominic Purcell as Drake is just, you give us Dracula, like the Blade villain and the all-time vampire, and that's the version you come at us with. Just embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. The only cool part of that version of Dracula is when he like climbs out of the tomb in the beginning and he's like a monster or whatever he is. But like, honestly,
I mean, this could be said of like any movie, but Parker Posey just should have been the main villain.
Oh, I love Parker Posey. See, that's the thing. That's why I can't totally slam that movie. Is like I said, like for every like Dominic Purcell or Triple H, there's a Parker Posey, and it's kind of like, well, we're never going to see this again in a movie, like this kind of weirdness, you know what I mean? So like,
and in fact, I actually do like Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel in that as well.
Yeah, me too.
I would have watched a spinoff with them. I thought they were an interesting addition. Yeah.
So it's just weird. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it pans out. And
I'm with you not being super excited about it.
Well, I like, this is just another, you know, not trying to create another topic, but I don't know about you, but like I've kind of like, as awesome as he is as a studio head, I've kind of like come to seeing Kevin Feige as like a carnival barker, and like I don't know why it is or what's going on, or if it's like relationship with Disney or what, but they're like, it just so much weird stuff that guy says ends up not coming true now. Like,
I'm still shocked. I'm just shocked he's still there. Like,
Yeah.
if I was him, I would be out of there by now.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that it's like still going well, and like but
Yeah.
at this point, there's like nothing left to prove, and it's just strange to me
Yeah.
that he doesn't want to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like he does have the clout to like go to Disney and be like, give me Star Wars, and they would probably give it to him.
Right.
It's just strange that like he's like, no, I'll just keep doing this. I mean, yes, they're going into these new realms with the TV thing, but could that really be as rewarding as just that initial like build up to the Avengers
Yeah.
was, and pulling that off? I don't know.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, at the very least, like modify his role. You know what I mean? Where I don't I'm still a fan of the guy. Like I give him credit for creating this unified thing that we never had before with comic book films. But at the same time, it's just like, isn't there other shit you want to do? And B, it's like, I kind of would like, even if it failed for a while and he had to come back or something, I kind of would like to see a different like model going on here. You know what I mean? Than whatever, just for the sake of just variety, I guess. But
Yeah.
so Trev, actually, it's your turn. Go ahead. What do you have next?
All right, so I'm gonna read you a list here, Goat. I want to see if at what point you think you know what I'm reading to you.
Okay.
All right. This is a list of movie titles. Setup, Catch 44, The Cold Light of Day, Fire with Fire, The Prince, Vice, Extraction, First Kill, Acts of Violence, Precious Cargo, Once Upon a Time in Venice, Anti-Life, Survive the Night, Breach, 10 Minutes Gone, Hard Kill, Cosmic Sin, Trauma Center, and Reprisal. Do you know what any of those were, and do you know what the through line is with everything I just named?
I've seen about 25% of those films.
Okay.
So what I'm going to guess is you're running down our boy Bruce's modern deep cuts.
Yeah, I want to talk about Bruce Willis because I'm just curious, Goat. So this is one of our old school conversations. You have in the past, and to a point where I now understand where you're coming from a little bit more with some of these people. Right? You in the past were always very defensive about like the modern work of actors like Robert De Niro, and and some other actors who kind of fall in these realms. And I kind of get where you're coming from. You're right that as actors get older, the same opportunities are presented to them, and you kind of take the work you can get. And, you're also someone who's been very, I don't know. I've never understood, like, I've never known how much tongue in cheek it is or whatever, but you've been very like, you've stayed a fan of Steven Seagal, even as to me, he's gotten very boring and lazy. But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on Bruce Willis in particular nowadays. So there was recently this interesting article that was published. I don't know if you read it, but it was about that producer who actually makes all of these films with like these, these actors, for the international market.
Our boy Emmett Furla, is that what it was?
Yeah. And I'm just curious, like with Bruce Willis in particular, do you find yourself, is he one that you're defensive of? Because he's an actor that really does like depress me nowadays.
Yeah.
I feel like, because I don't know, it's strange because I was thinking about this fact that it's so weird that there's all these actors that are making all these movies we've never heard of that just get these only international releases and whatever. And then I was thinking, well, all these actors from like the 60s and 70s, actors like Chuck Connors and Cameron Mitchell and all these guys, you look up their filmographies and it was really the same thing, right? The entire back half of their career is just all these like movies you've never heard of. So this is really nothing new. But you watch any of these Bruce Willis films and holy shit, this guy just does not care. And I'm just curious why he keeps bothering, like what is it? Like so I'm curious like what your theory is of like what is he doing? Like cuz I've never heard him having the same kind of financial troubles other actors have.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something I'm aware of with him. So like what do you think keeps him going, and like do you honestly like make a point to watch any of these, or are you just kind of like done with him at this point? And do you think we'll get like is he gonna come back? Like I feel like was Glass really his last gasp of like any kind of mainstream like relevance?
Well, okay, for why he's doing it, and this is my understanding from what I've heard, some things that happen behind the scenes on the Expendables franchise and so forth, is there's kind of been this like business model that's propped up around, these kind of fading action, well, not even fading action stars, even though they kind of exploited the most. But even Jean-Claude Van Damme talked about it in his film JCVD. They did kind of like a meta commentary of it. There are these films where it's like, you know, the budget is $7 million. They're going to pay $2 million for this guy to come in and work for a couple of days. And by the way, unless his like rate has dropped, like Bruce Willis is like he commands the highest of like the 2-day workers on these films. And I was actually hanging in there and watching these for a while, and I've seen a good. By the way, Cold Light of Day, that was, I don't know if you remember this, that was like a theatrical movie from, I believe, Summit. That was supposed to be the launching pad for our boy Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill,
yeah. So it's like, but yeah, like the other ones, like I'd have to look at it. Like I'd have to look at who's in them. There was one I watched, I want to say had Bruce Willis, Gina Carano, and maybe Kellen Lutz. And every once in a while,
that is Extraction. But
okay,
I have
Extraction.
all these posters in front of me right now. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't enjoy these movies because, you know, like Bruce comes in and he works for 2 days and he gets roughly about $1 million a day and whatever. But they create, which I don't have a problem for. Like I personally love, I love cameos from big name actors in smaller movies. You know what I mean? Like it's a fun little thing. But what I don't like is like when they posit that it's like he's like a main important character, and then there's just like something going on in the story where like he just can't be seen for 80% of the running time. You know what I mean? And like, I kind of have the same feeling about all these movies, or at least the ones I've seen, and I have more in my Netflix list. I recently watched one, Daughter of the Wolf with Gina Carano, that was like, I mean, she was like the main person in it. Like she was like actually in every scene of the movie. She's kind of traipsing through Alaska trying to save her son who's been kidnapped. And then there's a final showdown. I'm not shitting you, Trev, in this film between Gina Carano and Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, I saw this trailer. Yeah,
yeah, they do get out. And I gotta say, like that one and these Bruce Willis ones, like they're not really as bad. Like I'll be honest, like they're way better than our boy Slowhand and what he's been up to for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. I think De Niro's done some direct-to-video trash because he clearly, you know, he needs money.
Yeah, he's got some financial issues.
Yeah, he does. He's got tax liens and divorces and stuff. But with Bruce Willis, I think what happened with Bruce Willis was he was one of the highest-paid actors doing 1 to 2 films a year. He got a certain lifestyle. And, I mean, he has kids and stuff. We don't know. He could be supporting a lot of people. He's got a wife. I don't want to judge. It's sometimes it's a little gauche, I think, to say like, oh, that guy has all this money and why is he doing this piece of crap? Well, we don't know that. He might not have as much money. True. But what I kind of get the feeling with Bruce Willis, it's more like he used to do 1 movie a year for $20 million. So he still wants to make $20 million, but now he's got to do 10 movies a year to do it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the feeling I have. And I got to say, like, I occasionally revisit these movies. I just rent them through Netflix through the mail. It's always I hate to say this, it's always the fucking DVD they got to send because they're either too cheap to get the Blu-ray, or sometimes some of these movies, like the Gina Carano one, yeah, they only release them on DVD. And like the DVD of that Gina Carano movie I just watched the other week was like, it was trash. I mean, it wasn't even like DVD standards. It was like, I don't know, weird bootleg, ugly, fucking blurry shit. Like not even blurry, just like weird lines and shit on the screen. So like they're clearly not trying. And clearly these films are made on a factory, like whatever. And it's kind of the thing, like I've kind of phased them out, Trev, because if you check out a really like small unknown movie from about 20 years ago, there's a 50-50 chance it might be pretty good, you know, no matter what the genre. But like I've kind of learned these kind of modern, made in the last 10 years, factory line movies, they're not terrible, but like you're going to be like, you know, I if a movie's boring me, that's when I'm looking at my phone. And I virtually never do that. Never. But I do it with these movies. You know what I mean?
Like, I just read you a really long list of those. And I'd say, like, the one unifying thing is, like, those are all from, like, the last, I don't know, like, decade or so. Yeah. And I don't remember, none of those stood out to me as something where I ever heard someone say, like, in any review or anything where, like, you heard something that's pop or, like, Oh, I know Bruce Willis has been bad for a while, but have you seen like this one? It was like actually surprisingly good. You know, it's just kind of like these all just come and go, and I feel like without seeing them, I feel like I have seen them. You know.
Well, like I said, the only one that I won't recommend it. I would say like, oh, you're a Bruce fan, you haven't seen this movie, like maybe you want to check out Cold Light of Day because it's like it's a legit movie. Like I'll put it that way. You know, I saw it in the theater. I saw it at like $1.50 theater, but it was still a theater. The other now I get all the titles mixed up because they're so damn generic. But those two recent ones Bruce did, where he's fighting the space zombies and space aliens, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to check those out, and I actually really want to see Vice, the one he did with Thomas Jane. But it's like I want to see these things. Like I recently in the last year I watched this one with Matthew Modine and Sly Stallone. Have you seen that one out there?
I saw the poster for it.
Yeah, and like that was like this is kind of like a good movie. I mean, not a great movie, but, you know, a good watchable movie. But it was so distracting that Sylvester Stallone showed up for 2 days just to play the villain. And it's like, Sylvester Stallone sleepwalking is like the same level of Bruce Willis sleepwalking. Like, I don't really think these guys are embarrassing themselves by doing it. But if you're watching those movies to see those guys, you will be disappointed as their fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just sad. Like, do you think Bruce Willis still enjoys acting, or do you think it really is just about the money for him now? Because I don't know. It's like whenever you, I mean, I actually think he was good in Glass. I've seen people disagree with that. I thought it seemed like he cared, and I think there's a couple directors who it seems like can still get it out of him. I thought Rian Johnson, you know, going back to that, got something really strong out of him in Looper. And I think when he's like in a Wes Anderson movie, he's still pretty good. But I don't blame him for like not caring when he makes these necessarily, but it's still kind of a bummer. And you contrast that with someone like Nicolas Cage, where however you feel about him, that's a guy who usually brings some energy to even like the biggest trash he's in, right? He's kind of got this like mode that he falls into. And Bruce Willis just seems like, and it's not even just, I wouldn't say it's only going to these like European, DVD movies we're talking about. Look at how like disengaged he was in Die Hard 5, which is just like, it was so sad to see, right? Because that was the one character I thought he would never get lazy with, right? You know? Because even like I'm on record as liking Die Hard 4. I think it's better than people give it credit for, and I thought he was still kind of giving it his all in that one. And then number 5, there's like a scene where him and his son are getting shot at. And his son like ducks, and like Bruce Willis just like walks across the frame, like he doesn't even bother like ducking from the bullets that are being fired at his character. And it's just like, oh, he doesn't care anymore, you know. So I don't know, it's just weird. And I recently, like last year, for the first time in years, I watched Death Becomes Her. And God, I love that movie. And he's so great in that, like that weird like manic comic energy he had, and the fact of him playing a character like that, and then thinking like how much fun he was in something like The Fifth Element or Blind Date. And just like, this guy used to be so good, and like, I don't know, it's just strange how lazy he became.
You know what was a movie that I thought would be pure shit, and I thought it was like the beginning of his lazy period, and I thought it was just going to be another lazy movie, but I actually kind of really end up liking it, and I own a copy and I watched it a few times. I actually kind of really like way blows away to me Die Hard 4 or 5. I actually really like that hostage movie he did. You ever see that?
Oh, I'm with you actually. I did like that.
Yeah, like it was interesting. It had good, like it was cool seeing Ben Foster play this like
Ben
weird.
Foster's awesome in that.
Yeah,
it was like the beginning of like the weirdo Ben Foster era. I think.
It was
like the first one, and then you got like 30 Days a Night and 3:10 to Yuma, and it's like, oh, this guy rules.
And Alpha Dog, remember Alpha Dog?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like so, like here's the thing: is like everybody's different. Everybody has like different pitfalls. I think out of all those guys, because you know, like I've defended De Niro, and I'm like, well, he's fucking 70. They're only going to give him certain type of roles. I think the one, and he's even older, but I think the one where it's like, man, it makes me sad that I haven't really seen Harvey Keitel in anything good in years. You know what I mean? But
you know, the one I'm sad about, because he's now starting to fall into these as well, is and I was kind of shocked to see that he was becoming one of these guys, because he's an actor who you would think is too classy for this. So you'd think like Hollywood would like kind of protect him a little bit more. But Morgan Freeman is now one of these guys as well. I was just at Target the other day and I saw
him in Travolta.
Not just him. What's this one? Hold on, I'm looking it up now. There's a movie out now called Vanquish that is a Ruby Rose Morgan Freeman movie.
Oh yeah,
and it was on like the new release rack, and I was like, what is this? You know, it's just like. It's got a 2.6 out of 10 on IMDb. It must be good, but yeah, that's like a bummer. Like that Morgan Freeman is like doing these now too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know you do what you got to do, I suppose.
And here's my thing. Like, I guess basically to sum this up, to wrap this up, Trev, is like, I know what you mean about the sadness, because I've, like, especially with Bruce Willis, Travolta a couple times. I'm really more of a Travolta fan, even on Bruce Willis. But it's like, you rent these things, and like, there's a part of you in the back of your head that's like, oh man, how far have these guys fallen? You know what I mean? This is sad to say, but there's another part of me that's like, as long as the movie isn't offensively like terrible and incompetently made, because a lot of these things to me, they're kind of almost like movie of the week type feeling things when you watch them. Like, they're very, they're very pedestrian. But I'm like, there's a part of me too. It's like, I'm kind of glad I can still see this guy in a movie, in all honesty. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. I think Bruce Willis is just the one I want to talk about, because he's the one that makes me sad. Because, like, with Travolta, right? I don't think I'm as big a Travolta fan as you are, but I would say, like, with him, I saw The Fanatic, and I wouldn't say I was a fan of it, but he's doing something in that movie, you know. And he seems to me like someone who's still having fun with these movies. Yeah. You look at like something like Gotti, and it's like, this is a guy who, even if I think he might know these movies aren't that great, but he's having a good time. And Bruce Willis to me looks like somebody who is like miserable, and that's what like bums me out.
Yeah, like, just real quick, everybody made fun of Gotti, but if you watch the scenes like where he's in the heavy cancer makeup, if you think like he's sleepwalking Travolta, like, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, you might not think it's a good performance, but I think he's trying. Like, to me with Bruce, because I understand Bruce is a special animal here. He's in his own category, with this stuff, and it's like, to me, like, I'll get down on Bruce when he stops answering the call, when like a Ryan Johnson calls him, or like a Wes Anderson calls him, and they have that, because the age they were at, they grew up watching Bruce and movies and stuff. If he stops answering the call of those guys and showing up and doing good work in their movies, then I'll be like, yeah, fuck this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I mean, I'll fully admit, those movies you rattled off, at least the ones I've seen, the majority of them are not very good. Like again, not offensively bad, but they're kind of like fuck around generic movies that aren't worth your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So since we kind of did two birds with one stone and killed my last one, I just really only have one last topic, and I was like really thinking about this about a week ago, Trev, and I was like, I kind of wanted your input on this. So regarding Star Wars. We are in like in a new era and all this kind of stuff. And I just see this thing like growing and sprouting and becoming its own thing. What do you think? Would it ever be possible? Would it ever be prudent? Would it ever be appropriate? And if so, what timetable, like, do you think we should probably start thinking about changing the name of Lucasfilm, the company?
I don't think there's any need to. I get what you're asking, but I think it's one of those things where no one's going to ever propose that idea. You know what I mean? Like, no one's going to be the person who's going to sit up and be like, let's not call this Lucasfilm anymore because it's, we're detached from Lucas. Because you could say the same thing of like, well, I guess Disney stayed in like other, there was other Disneys who like ran the company, right? But it's not like we're ever going to get to a point where like, let's not call this Disney anymore because we're so far gone from like what Walt Disney's vision was, you know? I think this is a company that like Lucas made. He built it. They're always going to want his name attached to it. There's certainly a level of cynicism to that. Like if it's still called Lucasfilm, they can still always sell the idea that this is like Lucas's universe, even if it's not anymore. Yeah. But I also think we are heading. We're getting into like minefields now with you and I, but
no, it's okay.
I have, I'm on record as having no issues really with Kathleen Kennedy. I think she's made some good decisions. I think she's made some bad decisions, as anyone else does. But I do think we're definitely heading in a territory of her continually seceding more of that power over to Dave Filoni. And I think Dave Filoni is like a Lucas protege, an acolyte. So I think it makes sense for it still to be Lucasfilm if Filoni becomes like the guy. So yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon, honestly. And I think Star Wars is always going to be the George Lucas thing. That, at least for like the for our lifetimes, I don't see that changing.
Yeah, I mean, to be real honest, what really got me thinking about it, honestly, was I was reading an article, and it wasn't really like an opinionated, like strong piece, but it was just kind of pointing out the fact that like I can't remember. We actually might be at this point already, but like we are actually like, if not already, but we are like reaching this precipice where like very soon there will actually be more Star Wars content, meaning hours, like just judging hours versus hours, like hours of TV shows, hours of movies. Not really the book thing, because that's kind of like its whole thing, because George Lucas also did books and that never really factored, but just like really just like, you know, what he created kind of firsthand with the movies and his TV shows he oversaw. And like we're actually at the point now where there's actually, I mean, assuming Star Wars goes forward, which I think it will, we're actually at the point where there's like going to be more non-George Lucas Star Wars in existence than there is George Lucas Star Wars. And like I was thinking about that, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of like fucked up in a way, like in reality. And then I just kind of think how like the whole handover happened, and kind of more's come out with Iger's book and some things that have been said. And I'm kind of like, this isn't really like, you know, because obviously, like you said, like the thing to compare it to is Disney, but like, I mean, Walt Disney died, you know what I mean? Like, whereas like George Lucas was like, you know, and I mean, I'm not saying like boo-hoo or whatever, but it seems like he thought there was going to be continued participation on his part, and like that didn't really happen. So I'm kind of like, to me, it's like, when does like, and again, if it was just like, if they were like making Indiana Jones movies and they were still making Grim Fandango video game, I'm like, okay, like the legacy of George Lucas, I get it. But to me, it's like this kind of guy that's still around. I mean, he's retired, but he, you know how he likes to dip his toe in, and when he gets motivated, I'm like, you don't want him there. Like as far as the fan base goes, like even the original trilogy diehards, you know, they didn't really warm up to the prequels. Like I kind of feel like the fan base is not really, like, I don't even know if there would be an outrage if they like changed the name. To me, his name is not like a draw anymore. It's like you can say what you want about, you know, there's been all these recent things about Disney and kind of rewriting their history and walking away from certain things in the past and all that. But it's like, Walt Disney is always a very nostalgic part of the Disney fandom, where it's like, I almost wonder that, like, I don't really like I don't see people, in all honesty, like talking about Red Tails and shit. Like nobody, I don't want to say nobody, a vast majority of people, like, they don't really like talk about George in a whole lot and with the recent stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's just slipping away from it.
I mean, I agree, but again, it's just that kind of thing where it's like, to me, it just seems like there's no reason to ever change, or no point. It is, yeah. There's just a certain thing of like tradition, right? Like MGM is still MGM, and nobody gives a shit about Louis B. Mayer anymore.
Metro Golden Mayer,
yeah. I mean, it's just like, it is Lucasfilm, and it always will be. And I think, to your point about how we're getting to an era where there's more non-Lucas Star Wars than there is Lucas Star Wars, yes, that's true, and we're probably gonna be at that soon. But whatever you say about like all this stuff that followed, and like, you know, decisions made to like not use his outlines or to kind of shut him out, those are like executive decisions, and most of it is still being done by filmmakers who grew up on his films and are still honestly trying to pay homage to him, you know? Yeah. So for anybody out there listening who is like on the opposite side from me and hates Rian Johnson, doesn't like Last Jedi, understand that Rian Johnson's not someone who hates George Lucas and was trying to shit on George Lucas, nor was J.J. Abrams, right? These were both guys who, in their own way, were trying to pay homage to a filmmaker and to a franchise they liked. And that's true of Filoni, that's true of Favreau, that's true of Ron Howard. Like, all these people are still, they want to play in George Lucas's universe. So I think there's still a value to that. And I think it's going to be years till it's going to take a couple more generations before people are interested in Star Wars, but don't connect it to the idea of George Lucas. I think that's still, I still think people think of Star Wars as George Lucas's universe, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It's just weird because it's like, they're like, I know exactly what you mean. Like, they're always going to want to do it as like a sort of like honorable tribute, but it's like, even Galaxy's Edge, like, they were originally going to like just theme it all around different parts of like the original trilogy, and then like the idea came of like, you know, like, hey, like, do we really want to follow somebody else's past when we're like kind of creating our own future? And it's just like I'm not saying it's like a hot thing, like they should change, like I'm not saying they have to change the name, but like I would say, I don't know, it's weird. And obviously there's going to be that thing too, if they did change it once George passed, then people would be mad. But it's like, I just think you could call it Skywalker film and it would be like,
maybe. You know. And it's also, there is that thing, I mean, again, I'm not trying to shun George Lucas, I respect the man, but I mean, you know, one of the biggest like compliments you can pay him is that he created this thing that will outlive him and has outgrown him. And I mean, he created franchise filmmaking in a way, or he's at least a big part of it. And it was only natural that at some point this was going to go beyond him. And I mean, you can think of, Sherlock Holmes is a character that is not only attached to Arthur Conan Doyle nowadays, right? Everybody wants to write a Sherlock Holmes story, and they still want to make Sherlock Holmes movies. And it's not like when people are like, I really love it because of Arthur Conan Doyle. They love Sherlock Holmes. And that's true of Star Wars now, too. He invented this universe that, yes, he was the only architect of it for a while. But, I mean, even early on, he didn't direct the Ewok movies. He was letting other people play in that world, and that just now continues. And he made the decision to sell it to Disney. And I don't know, maybe he had instant buyers or a seller's regret. I don't know. It's hard to say. But, he made the decision, and we all are living with it. And you can say, like, I don't like the new Star Wars, and fine, then just walk away. Don't bully the actors and filmmakers online. Be like, I'm done with it.
Or like, too, it's like, I don't know. Like either way, it's just interesting thought. But since my last topic, and I know we're going on long here, since my last topic kind of got folded earlier, I'll ask you one last question. Let's get down to brass tacks, Trev. Are you obsessed with Baby Yoda?
I liked Grogu quite a bit. I really do like The Mandalorian. I'm not. I think it's not a perfect show. I was not super huge on the finale of season 2, which I thought fell into a little bit of nostalgia baiting, and the whole Luke Skywalker stuff. I didn't do much for me, but no, I like Baby Yoda. I think it's definitely. He is cute and he's fun. It's just a cool character, and the relationship between him and Mando is interesting and fun every time it's on screen. There's just a simplicity to it that really worked. Yeah. But that's the thing is, like, I think I don't want Star Wars to only be The Mandalorian, but I also see the value of something like The Mandalorian. I think Mandalorian did a nice job of being that right amount of like kind of nostalgia and also just like kind of a fun, simple adventure. To me, the best of both worlds is a show like that at the same time as more daring stuff like Last Jedi or even like Rogue One, which I'm not a huge Rogue One fan, but I respect what it was doing. So
our boy Gareth is finally come back to filmmaking. I was happy to see that.
I'm actually kind of bummed, Goat. There was one topic that you had initially asked about that you never brought up on this episode, and I thought for sure we were going to get into it, and that was Brie Larson.
Actually, you know what? Like, I could borderline. I kind of shelved that intentionally because I thought maybe, like, I didn't know if you really want to talk about that, but like, like I was saving that for just to do it somewhere else in another area. But I can ask that as my final question. I know we've gone way longer. I thought this was gonna be like an 80-90 minute show. We've gone way longer.
It's fine. This is fun though. I liked this. Yeah.
But yeah, for the record, I'm obsessed with Baby Yoda. And I kind of feel like I shouldn't be because it's very non-creative. You just take Yoda and you make him a baby. I love it. I cried when he was taken away from Mando. I didn't want that. I wanted him. I was like Luke. I was like, it's time for the Jedi to end. He's a Mandalorian now. Give him a little helmet. Let him bounty hunt. I don't care. But yeah. But no, I'll let you do your last topic. I think you got one more, and then I'll ask you about Brie Larson if you want.
My last topic is very. I wanted to end on a really easy, simple one too, and this is just something where I just don't know your opinion, and I want to hear it. 'Cause this is a movie that we would have talked in a non-COVID world. We would have already gone over this and reiterated it and everything. But I'm just curious your thoughts on the Batman. Are you excited for another Batman reboot? And if you are, why? Or if you're not, what is kind of keeping you at a distance from it? What are your feelings on it?
Yes and no, and I've been conflicted. I've been hot and cold. But first of all, we live in a household, or not me and you, but I live in a household where Robert Pattinson can do no wrong. We love him.
I love Pattinson. Yeah.
We watch his old movies. We watch How to Be. We watch The Haunted Airman. We love the shit out of the guy. I was 1,000% on board. Like, I can't even tell you about the excitement that was coursing through this household over here when he got announced and everything. Even the rumors, I was like, that could never happen. When it happened, now I'm like, okay, shelve that movie. Don't finish it. Burn the film. Don't whatever. Because I'm like, to me, is like, I thought they were moving on from what they were doing. and not that everything has to be in a connected DC universe, whatever. But now I'm like, we got to keep Ben. We got to have Ben do something. We got to have Ben keep doing, even if it's in only cameo roles and he never whatever. So like, I'm kind of like, I'm so in on I don't consider it the Snyderverse. Like I know everybody says that, like just whatever the current continuity is. I really don't want to like start over with Batman. Like unless you're just like, which I think is what they're doing, but I don't know. If you're just like, okay, this is a Batman series that's like separate, whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, I went from being so pumped about that and being like, first of all, I didn't like that it took Matt Reeves 3 years to write the script. That seemed a little hinky to me. But I think that had more to do with like the behind the scenes stuff with Ben Affleck. Yeah. But it's like, dude, like I'm not like hating that. I'm not hating the Batman or whatever, but like I kind of don't see, because I don't know how much you read, Trev, but like they had to totally like change the location of the filming because of COVID, and it became more of an indoor movie, like in terms of they had to shoot on sound stages and shit and backlots. So it's like they kind of like started making this movie and then they had to stop, and they're like, I'm just afraid it's like, from a legit production standpoint, like it just got fucked up. Like I went from like wanting to see it really bad to like now I'm kind of like I'm half just still invested in the Snyder shit, and with Ben coming back to Flashpoint supposedly, and like I guess I want the movie, but I would be happy if this movie was coming out 3 years from now and not right now. Like it seems like the whole thing seems like a mixed bag to me.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of, I mean, so I get that. I get that logic. And I think when you said you'd be happy if it was coming out 3 years from now, I get that, but for like different reasons. I just feel like for me, that's more about just having distance between like iterations of the character. I actually kind of really like what DC is doing now. So I don't know. I don't know what the general feelings are on this, but I fall into the camp of finding their kind of stated approach to just see everything, to just like look at stuff as a multiverse, to be actually kind of a cool idea. Whether they're going to pull it off and whether I trust DC to like effectively make this clear to the audience, I don't know. I think they've had the advantage of being able to play with this for a while, and the fact that they already had the Arrowverse and then, you know, the movie universe, which was different. And I kind of like this idea of saying, well, the Batman with Robert Pattinson is just a different universe than the Ben Affleck Batman. And meanwhile, we can also have another one if we decide to later, you know. And you know, there's this talk about this Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Superman movie and like how that'll fall into like a different part of the universe. So I actually really like all that. I'm really excited for the Batman exactly because, like you said, because of Pattinson. I did not care at all about another Batman until he signed on, and it really was one of those cases where he's the kind of actor. Okay, I ended up not really liking the Joker, but when I was excited for the Joker, it was for the same reason. We were like, wow, if Joaquin Phoenix is signing on, there must be something here, you know? And that's how I feel about Pattinson. Like, Pattinson doesn't seem like an actor who takes a Batman role because it's going to make him money or because someone pressured him into doing a blockbuster film. I believe that that's probably a really interesting script for Pattinson to want to do it. I know you should never believe any hype from filmmakers, but when they say that they're finally going to do something in this film that's never been done in a Batman movie, and my only assumption is like, oh, it's finally a detective story, which is what I still believe and hope for. Yeah, that's what I want to see, and we haven't gotten it. And you know, Paul Dano as like a Zodiac-esque version of the Riddler, as we kind of, you know, got from the trailer, is very exciting. I love Colin Farrell, so him as like the Penguin seems really cool. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for it, but at the same time, there is that part of me. It's just like, all right, another Batman movie. Yeah. So it is one that it's hard not to have mixed emotions about it. That's why I wanted to ask, because it's like I feel the same way, where it's just like everything about it. If this was the movie that was coming out when Batman Begins came out, I would be just like so super pumped, right? But the fact that I'm getting it after 3 Nolan movies and more Ben Affleck Batman movies, and then just so much other Batman content in general, I don't know if it's ever going to be possible to be really, really super duper hyped for another Batman movie again, which is unfortunate, but just the way it is.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, they've gone to the well too many times, and like, I'm just not really plussed at all about the rest of the casting of the movie. Not that I don't individually like the actors. Like, I love Paul Dano. I actually really... There's a movie, I don't know if you ever saw it, but with Zoe Kravitz and Ethan Hawke. It was just like a little drama about like Air Force pilots who actually like pilot the drones that blow people up and shit. Like it was pretty interesting little movie. And I love Colin Farrell. Like Colin Farrell's like one of my favorite actors. But it's like just seeing the same old Batman characters coming back, and like obviously I'm sure they're going to do like a completely different spin. Like I've already seen some whatever photos of how Colin Farrell's doing the Penguin, but it's just like really this same old shit like again. You know what I mean? Like I think if anything, I don't know how you feel about it, Trev, and it probably would have just turned out to be more like Batman and Robin, but like I'm always intrigued when I hear about that Joel Schumacher like Batman movie that they never made with like the Scarecrow as the villain.
Triumphant,
yeah. I don't know why that always like I don't know.
No, I actually I'm with you. I wish that had happened, and especially like I've listened to the Batman and Robin commentary where Joel Schumacher is just so apologetic, and like it makes me sad to like listen to it now because he shouldn't be. He was just kind of following orders, and I think he actually, in retrospect, with like time and everything, we can actually see that he made a pretty interesting, fun movie. Like Batman and Robin is like bad, but I mean it's really entertaining. And people don't believe me when I say this, but like, give me Batman and Robin over Dark Knight Rises any day. Like I'll sit and watch Batman and Robin. Yeah. Dark Knight Rises is like is a mess, but like not a very fun mess. Batman and Robin is a mess that's like very entertaining.
Well, Batman and Robin is interesting because like what I love about Batman and Robin is like it's like finally that like it's almost like a satire. It's like that movie that got made where the studio got everything they wanted, like every shitty note they ever requested got incorporated. And it's just like it's I mean, I know we can say, oh, it's it's bad. I don't even consider it bad. It's just like it's like this weird, it's almost like a fever dream of what a Batman movie should be like. You know what I mean?
Meanwhile, and then but within that, right, it could just be like all like that, but in the meantime you also have Uma Thurman giving a legit great performance as Poison Ivy. Like she's awesome. Schwarzenegger is having a ball in that. Like he is super entertaining. Like you can tell he's just having the time of his life. The problem really is, I hate to say it, but the problem really is Clooney with that movie. Like he just seems detached from it. If you had an actor who kind of was a little bit more tongue in cheek, I think that movie would be much more like kind of well received.
I always got the impression that it was almost like he just wasn't allowed to say no to that movie. Like if he would have said no, like the studio would have like just fucked him over, like blacklisted him or something. You know what I mean? Like, cause like, there's nothing more like 1990s than watching the scenes that like have Chris O'Donnell and Alicia Silverstone in them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's just like a perfect time capsule. Like, I know the movie came out in 97, but like it's like perfect, like mid 90s time capsule. Like, I don't know, like and like I saw it in the theater and like, I was just like, yeah, like this is like, but then again, I didn't really like the previous one as well. So it was like, I was like, okay, this is what we're doing with Batman now. And it's like, and then when it flopped, I was kind of like confused because I'm like, well, like I like the Tim Burton ones more. And I'm like, but I felt like this was the kind of the movie that it seemed like the audience wanted more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. It's just, I mean, also they're just movies that have, they're comic book movies that have personality, right?
Yeah,
like, I think, it's funny like how much people like hated Spider-Man 3, right? And just completely trashed it. And now look at how excited everyone is that Sam Raimi's doing Doctor Strange 2. Yeah. And it's like, well, I get it. Like you like two of his Spider-Man films, not the third one. But I mean, go back and look at Spider-Man 3. Like that's a film I've long defended, again, because it's not great, but it's still a Sam Raimi movie, and his like voice is still there, and there's still sequences that are so Sam Raimi, and it's like, how can you not be entertained by a lot of this, And like the same with the Schumacher Batman movies, they're like strange, but they have this like voice to them, and if a Marvel movie that came out like that felt like that now, I'd be excited because they all kind of do feel the same to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, not to just take a free pass to dump on Marvel, but like I think it's very weird, like the kind of current current genesis of just about every Marvel movie is they always like, we got this great director. They always trot out like literally the current hottest like indie film director, and they're like, we got this great director and they're so good and blah blah blah. And then it's like when you see the final movie, it's like, well, okay, but this just seems like every other Marvel movie.
Like when they had the directors of Half Nelson do Captain Marvel. It's like, okay, cool. Well, look at Half Nelson and then look at Captain Marvel and tell me what the hell happened there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess that's a perfect segue, Trev, to the last. So I don't know what you think. I think about Brie Larson, but like this is like, I'm going to lay some facts down, and then I'm just basically going to ask you the question. Okay, so Brie Larson, she starts out, she really started out as like a young singer slash actress. She started getting more, kind of left the music behind, got more into the acting, in her older teens, all through her probably early to mid 20s. She played the sexual conquest, love, whatever, in a weird boarding school movie with Chris Kattan, where her and Chris Kattan had some romantic interactions. Career flatlining, tiny part in Scott Pilgrim versus whatever. And it's like, then the perfect career started, like probably about 7 years ago. The first knockout punch, boom, coming in with the Room, like all Oscar, her and Jacob Tremblay, awesome, great. She follows it up with more like, there's some of the weird missteps in there, like Basmati Blues or whatever, that kind of people just ignore it. But then, like, she followed up in a movie I loved. I don't know what you think about this movie, but the movie Free Fire, great, kind of fun, independent, and like kind of like really almost like a Dead on Arrival box office wise, but instantly kind of gained cult credibility because it's kind of like this movie that's like a 90-minute shootout. I thought she was great in it. She uses her indie clout to jump kind of in the blockbuster stratosphere with the Kong Skull Island. I love that movie. That's actually my favorite of all those current King Kong Godzilla movies. She did a great job. She kind of playing the supporting, like kind of sidekick, whatever, like great. And then like obviously then she takes the complete other step, headlining the current most recent whatever franchise, Captain Marvel. Kevin Feige came out, and this is kind of why I think Kevin Feige's a huckster now. He made all these promises about how important Captain Marvel was to the whatever MCU, all this. After Captain Marvel, I mean, I could like that's just like textbook playbook. Like you don't get any engineering career, you couldn't do it any better than what Brie Larson did in like I would say roughly a 5-year period there. Then as soon as Captain Marvel's over, her career, okay, now we're doing Nissan commercials. Okay, great. Like, it's supposed to be this witty, whatever. Okay, like, people were like, oh, this commercial's so witty. It's so, whatever. Female empowerment, whatever. And it's like, okay, that's great. Like, okay, she got a chance to do a commercial and get paid, and I, put a message in it. Okay, I can kind of see why she would do that one. Then she goes on this weird, like, journey of being, like, a celebrity who talks about Nintendo all the time. Okay, I guess she likes Nintendo. It's just her personal life. That translates into becoming a paid Nintendo spokesperson doing like weird commercials online. And then that goes into, we get another Nissan commercial. And now she's on YouTube and it's not going very well at all. Like I would say probably, I mean, people watch her shit, so I'm sure she's like getting a good revenue. She probably has one of those like celebrity deals where they pay her just to do content, period. And it's like, yeah, and it's like, so it's like, she is like, I've never seen somebody fall from the A-list to the B-list. And then like, just like, I guess this is recent news, but like Captain Marvel 2 isn't even going to be Captain Marvel 2 anymore. She has to share it with like the Miss Marvel character. So I'm like, Trev, I've never seen an A-list career go in free fall so much. Like, what is going on, and what can we do to help Brie Larson?
All right, okay. You're right. I didn't know what you felt about Brie Larson. I had some maybe predictions, but I wanted to talk about it because when you said you want to talk about Brie Larson, I was like, I would love the opportunity to talk about Brie Larson because first of all, I'll just quickly say I don't think she needs help. Okay. And I'll say that like. I like Brie Larson, and I want to talk about her because there's a certain kind of movie fan, most of them on YouTube or on Twitter, who I find very reprehensible and just super annoying nowadays. And there's nothing they love more than to trash Brie Larson. And there's like no current movie opinion, Twitter or movie fandom opinion that I'm more bored by and just like disgusted by than all this like anti-Brie Larson stuff. And it's like, give me a break. Like, okay, so Brie Larson is awesome. And it's really this thing where I don't hate to say it. I'm just gonna say it. And I don't know how many of them are listening to the show, and if you are, feel free to hate me, but all of you who keep making multiple YouTube videos about how much Brie Larson sucks and tweeting about it all the time and talking about how the Captain Marvel now being the Marvels means that MCU doesn't have any faith in her and she's a failure. I'm sorry, this is just misogyny. It's just you being assholes. It's just you being idiots. Brie Larson, this seems like it started big time with them when she did that interview where she said that, she wished more female critics would review movies made for women.
Yeah.
And man, that like put a target on her. And all I could think is all these like dickheads who like got so offended by that. Imagine if Jason Statham did an interview where he said, I think only people who like action should review action movies. They would fucking hoist him up on their shoulders.
Yeah.
They would celebrate him and say, this guy knows what he's talking about. If Eli Roth said only horror fans should review horror movies, they'd be like, preach on, Eli, you are the man. But for Brie Larson to dare say that maybe some more female critics should review movies made for women, well, what is she talking about? These are just all these assholes who they've waited their whole life for like nerdy properties to be the thing. They've gotten what they want, and now they have nothing to like rebel against and be angry about. So they've gone after like this woke culture shit, and she's become their main target. And it's like, when you say like she has this A-list career that fell to the B-list, I mean, Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame is only 2 years ago, Yeah. And in that time she did Just Mercy, which, I think was kind of that's a movie that, it was one of those like prestige picks that people sometimes follow their big blockbusters with. Mm-hmm. We don't know yet how... The thing with Captain Marvel 2 being the Marvels is as soon as they made Captain Marvel, a lot of us like nerds knew that like the next one would be her and Miss Marvel together. I think they were even like already talking about that. Them going with that title, I don't think that means anything. I don't think it like means that they have no faith in Captain Marvel. I think it just literally means they're trying to create a new team because they have no idea what's going on now with the Avengers, and they're going to have, they're going to have the Marvels, they're going to have the Young Avengers. I think Brie Larson's doing okay, and I think, her YouTube channel is just her trying to have fun during the pandemic when no one's really doing anything, and she's just entertaining herself. I think in general she just seems like a fun person. I kind of knew her before some of the stuff you talked about because. Goat, you probably remember this too. She was actually kind of like a little bit of a fixture in like the little LA comedy scene. She was like, she would pop up in guest appearances on Community. She had a little role in 21 Jump Street. Like she was part of like that gang. And in fact, she just recently, the other day, she was like the guest star on the latest episode of How Did This Get Made? The Jason Mantzoukas, Paul Scheer podcast. They actually did Supergirl.
I haven't had time to listen to a podcast since that came out, but I am dying to hear that. And I have to say, because we did a commentary for Supergirl. I'm with bated breath. I want to hear that podcast, but I'm a little nervous because I don't want to hear that movie get trashed up and down and
Goat, I was like worried about it too, and I did not listen to it until a friend told me about it, and I listened to it, and guess what? They all like Supergirl. So you're safe.
Okay, I can work tomorrow.
and Brie Larson, in fact, really liked Supergirl.
Okay.
But yeah, like, and then when people say like she's, she's not that great of an actress. I mean, before even The Room, which I think she was, I think she's fantastic in The Room.
I love Room.
But I don't know if you've seen Short Term 12. But
no, I haven't.
Movie I just absolutely love, and that's like that movie. Like, man, that movie made me cry. Like that movie, like just moved me so much. And that talked about a movie that was like, you go back and look at that cast. That's Brie Larson, Rami Malek, Lakeith Stanfield, Caitlin Dever, and John Gallagher Jr., who have all gone on to like quite decent careers since, But yeah, that's a fantastic movie. And then that's where I really started to pay attention to her as like a dramatic powerhouse. I know it sounds like I'm rambling, but I'm just trying to make the point where like. When you say like she fell from the A-list to the B-list, I think that's ultimately, unfortunately, like more indicative of just the way people kind of look at the careers of actresses. Because when you said that you haven't seen this happen, I was thinking, well, the other kind of recent example is Jennifer Lawrence, who was another one where like people just kind of turned on her and got sick of her. And it was like the same kind of thing where I think Brie Larson and Jennifer Lawrence both have this really kind of goofy personality as well. And there's something about like women, when women are funny and goofy, they're kind of not allowed to be. I saw this happen to Megan Fox too, right? Megan Fox has this like really cutting, sarcastic sense of humor, and everyone turned that into her being a bitch. And I've seen that happen with Brie Larson, where she did one of those like YouTube videos where it's like her answering like autocomplete questions, and all the comments on the video are like, "What's with her attitude?" And it's like, go watch that video and tell me if you honestly believe she has an attitude, or if she's just being goofy and like making fun of how dumb the questions are. And again, if a guy does that, no problem. But when a woman does that, no, thank you.
No, yeah, I watched that video. I thought it was funny. I didn't really see anything negative about it.
So I don't know. I think it's I can't say that she's fallen off the A-list because it's just like there really hasn't been that much time since Captain Marvel, and one whole year of it was just a wash, And we'll see what happens next. But I think she's fine. I don't think MCU's getting rid of her. I think we're just seeing. I think we're seeing the
MCU.
I just think we're seeing like the real progression of that character. I think Captain Marvel is still an important part of their plans, and I don't know. We'll see what her next steps are, but I think she still has the clout to easily step into like a blockbuster movie. But I also think she might want to just try some stuff like Just Mercy and just do these smaller roles. And it's unfortunate that if she does that, people are going to say it's like a proof of failure and not say it's like an actress taking some risks or something. So, yeah, sorry to rant, but yeah, I just...
No.
I like her, and it just bothers me how much she seems to be public enemy number one to all these like yahoos online who just need to get a life.
If you want to guard yourself against that, if the video has like a thumbnail of like her face like scrunched up and screaming, or looking like really blank-eyed and dumb, you just avoid the video because you're not gonna get like objective criticism. No, but like yeah, because like there's like a lot of movies before like I knew who she was, like, you know, way before what was it, fucking Room, and like yeah, just like looking through like her part in The Spectacular Now, Don John, and then The Gambler with Mark Wahlberg, which like nobody talks about that movie, but I actually really liked that. Like that was like a modern movie that reminded me of like a kind of throwback to like a 70s character drama.
That was the Rupert Wyatt one, right?
Yep. I really enjoyed that movie. I actually kind of want to give it a rewatch, but like, yeah, she's really like, and there's been a few that I missed. Like I didn't see Short Term 12. I didn't even know she was recently in Short Term 12 until I looked up actually like Keith Stanfield's a thing. And I haven't seen Just Mercy, and I know that's supposed to be like a great movie, but like, yeah, like I was just like, she's so good. Like as far as all the stuff people criticize her, like, you know, the people that like, you know, really criticize her, like I think she said a couple of things over the years that to me was like a little awkward, like chalk it up to maybe like somebody putting their foot in their mouth or maybe being misunderstood a little bit, but there was nothing that I was personally offended by. It was just like, I did take exception, and this had nothing to do with her. Like, I didn't like the weird hype around Captain Marvel that like this was like somehow a groundbreaking like female superhero movie, when I'm like Wonder Woman came out like 2 years ago. Like, so I didn't really like, and I know that was Marvel like patting themselves on the back, or not even Marvel, maybe just people who like kind of lick the boots of Marvel or whatever. But I'm just like, other than that, like, you know, kind of that thing I was complaining about earlier, like I felt like we didn't have any like real actors for like a while here, and now these like kind of younger guys are coming through. And like, to me, I think she is her, and yeah, Jennifer Lawrence. I think they're, I mean, unless there's just somebody I'm blanking on right now, I think they're probably like you know, I say young. These women are like in their early 30s now, but you know what I mean. They're not like, they haven't been acting for 40 years, but I think they're probably our two best actresses, honestly, that we have right now. You know.
Well, that thing with you saying like they put their foot in their mouth, I mean, sure, and like everybody does, right? And it's just like something with the thing with Captain Marvel, like Marvel hyping it that way. I agree, it was like kind of, you know, I could see how it could be like a little eye rolling worthy,
yeah.
But the truth remains, even though Wonder Woman ended up beating it, there still wasn't a lot of female superhero movies, and there still aren't, you know. And it did deserve, and it's like very easy for you and I, or like these guys who make these YouTube videos, to like look at that and be like, oh, why is Marvel doing this? But like,
yeah.
Go actually talk to some of the female superhero and comic book fans, and like they were very excited about both those movies, because that does matter to them. To have a character like Captain Marvel is important, and I can see why that would mean a lot to Brie Larson, and why she would talk about how the representation is important. And everyone like rolls their eyes at it, but I mean, Jesus Christ, it's like, it's one movie out of like so many Marvel movies. Don't worry, guys, you're still getting mostly male-led Marvel movies. You can let there be a Captain Marvel movie every couple of years, right? It's not that your dick's not gonna fall off. Just,
well, no, and if you look, like, I think the thing that like kind of gets people like huffy and puffy more than anything is like we grew up with Linda Hamilton in Terminator, and we grew up in Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, and we grew up with even like more recent times, and I know it's almost Mila Jovovich, but like, we grew up with Mila kicking ass in Resident Evil, but it's like, for whatever reason, like those movies just kind of came out and like they were popular for what they were, but the media was different, and especially social media was different, or either didn't exist, and it was like the conversation that's created around some of these movies, like they probably would have been around those earlier movies, just the media was different then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think that ultimately like proves the point, right? Like, 'cause it's like you have you're saying, and you're right, that there was already like female-led action movies that were successful, and that just proves how there is like a sexism and there is a misogyny involved in both the media and Hollywood, that like those movies could happen, and we still have to have this conversation every time they announce a new female-led movie where it's like,
Right.
well, is this going to be a hit though? It's like, well, we've proven it can be
Yeah.
now. So like, why are we still having this discussion? You know, and I think that's where people like Larson get frustrated. It's like, why does this need to still be a discussion? Why can't we just have these movies, you know?
no, I totally get it. And like, as much as like the whole misogyny thing and always questioning like, oh, another female movie, or oh, would it be successful? And if it's not successful, it's because of female. Like I get we're like in this kind of still kind of new era of like fans creating their own media, creating their own blogs, creating their own videos. And like, as much as like you want to, it's like I think kind of the wrong thing was like just the fans, or like just general like taking all the blame for like the misogyny or whatever, because it's like for every cranky person there is like whatever making a shitty YouTube video hating somebody like for really no reason. It's like, to me, like the real misogyny is Hollywood. like you're not greenlighting shit because of this or that. It's like, to me, you're
like,
the bigger problem.
Like Electra bombs, and then they're like,
Yeah.
well, that means we can't have any more movies like that. Like, well, why? Like, and that doesn't, and as you said, like that doesn't happen if one male superhero movie bombs. And that's when you know we've reached like kind of equality, right? So like Captain Marvel is a perfect example where that's a movie I'm not super hot on. But the reason I'm not super hot on it is the same reason I'm not super hot on Ant-Man 2. They're just both kind of boring movies. You know, it has nothing to do with the gender of the hero. It's just like they're both average, and that's fine. Like, I want women to be I want us to get to the point where there's as many like shitty female superhero movies as there are good ones, because that just means finally everything's the same.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like I when Captain Marvel came out, I saw it, I enjoyed it, but it's like I didn't think, like at the time I kind of thought like, oh, it's kind of one of the worser Marvel movies, like it's probably in like the bottom 5 or 7 Marvel movies, just because it just was kind of like a generic origin story. And I was kind of like, well, okay, like, you know, whatever issues I had with it, it was kind of like because it was like a clunky origin setup. Now that all that's away, like, you know, it, like I don't, like Trev, like I don't, you know, I get that this is a common used like trope in screenwriting, but whenever you're dealing with a hero that has amnesia, it's you're always going to like kind of have some clunky like moments,
like,
you know.
It was a gigantic miscalculation to tell that story the way they did. There's like no doubt about it. Yeah, it was a very strange choice, and I think it also that did hurt her, and that, you know, you've seen people like attack her performance, but it's like they didn't give her the kind of role that would allow her. It's strange that you cast Brie Larson, who everybody was like very excited about her getting that role, and then you didn't frame the character in a way that allowed Brie Larson to show her strengths, because she's a very likable, fun person. You want that character to not be dour and like not know who she is for the whole film. I don't know. It was a weird choice. Yeah.
No, yeah. Like I almost think it goes back to what we were saying about Mahershala Ali and Blade. It's just like you said, like they didn't get Brie Larson to do like the best role that Brie Larson could do. They just grabbed the hottest name they could because they're Marvel. You know?
But I mean, in terms of like doing car commercials and stuff, I don't know. Like McConaughey does it too, you know. Like, whatever. And if she wants to be a Nintendo spokesperson, I don't know. I think that's cool. So I'm not gonna complain about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, what's next? Supermarket openings? I don't get it. I don't know. Like, to me, I thought she kind of had the, you know, YouTube critics aside, I guess you could say possibly. But other than that, I just thought she had the hottest like career going in Hollywood, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. But also, like, are there still, I mean, again, like, there really aren't movie stars now, right? All these people who I think are going to be like this next big A-lister, like, what does the A-list even mean now? Like, A-list kind of only is being in a superhero franchise, right? Like, that's gonna be her thing. She's probably locked into Captain Marvel for what, like 5 or 6 more years, and then in the meantime, like, what else is there to do? I mean, none of these actors are making would you say her career is that much different than Chris Hemsworth? I mean, he's Thor, right? But everything else he does, nobody gives a shit about. You know, he's doing Netflix originals too. So I mean, I don't know what A-list means anymore.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, he did like the Michael Mann movie, but then that flopped, and like like he did like Heart of the Sea, and that flopped, and like I would say he had the I really like that one Afghanistan movie he did though. Like that was actually pretty good. Blanking on the name of it. It has like a numerical name, like 12 something. I don't know, but like like I don't know. To me, it was just almost seemed like she quit acting and just started doing commercials. Like it was weird and like. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. Like I'm trying to keep an open mind because it's like I was just like once the clunkiness of Captain Marvel was done with the origin story, I was like, now we can move full effect. And then like they didn't really let the directors go, but they reassigned them to like one of the TV projects, and then like. Yeah, when I saw that, like, it wasn't really going to be Captain Marvel 2. Because I was hoping they would just do something where it would almost still be like a prequel, where it's like the last one was the 90s, and now this one was like the early 2000s or something. But, I don't know. I guess at this point we just got to accept that Marvel's going to be shoving the world building down our throats.
Yeah, and it's funny when I hear people say, like, oh, well, that proves they don't have faith in her as a bankable star. But it's like, do you honestly believe their solution to that would be to give her, like, co-billing with two characters that are only going to be from TV at that point? You know, that's not them not having faith in Brie Larson. That's just them being so cocky now that they feel like any Marvel movie is a hit, you know?
Yeah, like I gotta say too, like because I mean, just real quick, they released an Avengers game last year, Trev, and it like caused a big stink because it really wasn't an Avengers video game. It was actually a Miss Marvel game in disguise. Like literally, you just play as Miss Marvel the whole game. I played about halfway through it. I really liked it. I ended up really liking it. Like it really goes into the origin of Miss Marvel. So like I was like, okay, cool. Like I like this character in this like whatever Square Enix video game form. Like I'm looking forward to like the character being introduced. And it's just like, so like, I mean, I'm not against the character coming out. It's just like, I kind of want to Captain Marvel too, to be honest.
See, I kind of like, there's a weird part that disagrees to where like my favorite thing about the MCU now is watching these characters interact with each other.
Yeah.
So like maybe because I wasn't super hot on Captain Marvel, and actually Captain Marvel is a comic book I love. Like I like the character in the Marvel comics a lot, but I would kind of rather see her like interact with other heroes than watch another solo film. I kind of just like don't want solo films at all anymore. I don't know, just something where I like watching these characters bounce off each other. So I actually find it fun to think that the next movie will be her interacting with Miss Marvel and Monica Rambeau. I mean, my only concern is it seems like really early for like Miss Marvel to already kind of show up, because the idea is she's like, she's this little kid who's obsessed with Carol, but Carol really hasn't done much yet to have fans. So that's like kind of concerning, but whatever.
Yeah, it is weird. So I'm just going to throw it out there since we're going full whatever. What's your verdict on the scene in Captain Marvel where she beats everybody up and just a girl plays on the jukebox?
Awful. That was bad. Like now I'll be a hypocrite for everything I've said about how like I don't I'm very liberal and I don't mind all this like woke stuff that everyone else does. That was like what what the problem with that was is that the reason I hated the use of that song is that was the bad kind of like woke kind of thing that like does bother me, because there were no characters in that film that ever discounted her for being a female.
Right.
Like nobody she's fighting in that scene was like, you're a woman, you can't do this. So like the thematics of that song make no sense in that moment. So that was like too in your face, and like there was no point to that song at that point.
Well, here's Trevor. I think this is probably like this is the moment where I come to the realization why I'm not really that popular on YouTube, is that's probably my favorite scene in the movie. I mean, first of all, I love the song. I love the song when it first came out. I was a huge No Doubt fan, and just because it's the scene where she finally powers up and kicks the shit out of everybody. Yeah. No,
I like the song. I don't know. I have this thing where like when you use a song like that in that kind of scene in a comic book movie, I'm very tuned into like why you chose that song, and like that one there was like. You see, you get what I'm saying, right? Like thematically, I didn't understand it other than to be like, this is our female movie.
Yeah, it is weird.
It's kind of like I don't like the moment in Endgame, right, where all the women line up, because it's just like we don't need that scene to know all these women are badass. They're badass because they're there, and like my problem with that scene is they all line up to protect Captain Marvel, who does not need their protection.
Yeah, who's like stronger than all of them put together. Yeah, I gotta say, like, that was a little weird, that in-game moment, because, like, I felt like there was a similar moment in Infinity War that worked really good, where the female heroes teamed up against that one, like, female alien lady, and, like, that really worked, and then, like, the one in in-game felt like it was almost, like, shoved in at the last second as a weird reshoot or something.
It was, like, pointless because they don't need to protect her, and also, like, your longest running female character is, like, dead at that point.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, and she's not there to, like, be part of this. Like, it just felt like, ugh. Like,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Oh, Marvel. We could fill 20 hours full of Marvel. But yeah, that was interesting. Definitely, like, this show has literally ended up being twice as long as I thought it would be. But
you could always, maybe you could split it.
I could split it. I could do a shit. What was it? I could do a Snyder cut. We split it, and then But yeah. But before we go, real quick, you got to tell the people exactly, because this will be released in a few weeks in the full swing in it. What is Mila Jovovich?
So Mila Jovovich is the 2-month event that we are now undergoing over at my other podcast, Failure to Franchise, which is, as I said earlier, a show dedicated to all failed franchise starters. So movies that were meant to spawn sequels and spin-offs and universes and did not for whatever reason. And one of the main things I've wanted to do since starting the show was to dedicate some episodes to my favorite leading lady, Mila Jovovich, who I've been in love with since I was a teenager. She's always been my number one crush, and as much as I love her, she's definitely had her fair share of failed franchise starters. So it's a bi-weekly podcast. So in May we're doing in May and June, Mila Jovovich, we're doing 4 of Mila's movies. We start with Ultraviolet, roll into Paul W.S. Anderson's Three Musketeers. Then we're looking at the Hellboy reboot, which I've never seen. This will be my first time checking that out.
Amazing.
And then we're ending it with The Fifth Element because we wanted to end on a real high note. And recently, I always knew that there was like talks of like a Fifth Element sequel, but recently I read an article that revealed the producers talking about how like while they were filming The Fifth Element, they were already like kind of doing some initial work on the sequel. So that gave us the impetus to say, all right, well, let's just go and look at that one then. So yeah, should be a good time. And I any opportunity I get to rave about Mila, I will definitely take, even if it's talking about some of her failures. That's kind of the double-edged sword of this. I want to pay tribute to her, but meanwhile I'm going to be talking about all these movies that didn't quite work for whatever reason.
Amazing. I can't. A lot of people don't know, but her character, the bandage version, I guess you could say, is one of the things that actually kind of helped popularize the whole cosplay phenomenon in the United States. It's one of the most widely cosplay characters of all time.
Which is interesting because it's a very daring cosplay.
Yeah, like to me, you're almost going even further than the slave Leia outfit did. Yeah. But yeah, so awesome. So again, thank you everybody for listening. We enjoy your listenership. We love it. Unfortunately, I guess that's just the nature of being a fan of older stuff. Somebody I thought was awesome recently passed, Tawny Katane. I was like literally just crazy about Bachelor Party when I was a kid. I watched it on cable like literally about 20 times. I thought she was great in that. And then later on, I discovered her in Witchboard, which I think is like maybe her best acting role that I've seen. But were you a fan of anything she was in, Trev?
You know, I mean, I definitely grew up watching Bachelor Party a lot. That's actually a movie, man. I haven't watched that in like over 20 years, probably. Maybe I should revisit that. You know, just a few years ago, for the first time ever, I saw what's that? Like The Perils of Gwendolyn. Have you ever seen that movie she did?
No, I haven't seen it, but I keep somehow I'm like friends or something with the director on Facebook, and he was talking about it. So I keep hearing about the movie, but I have no clue like what it's about or anything.
I'm not here to say it's like a good movie, but I mean, it's one of those ones where if you go in with the right mindset, you're gonna have some fun with it. And then like anyone like around our age range, you know, obviously that Whitesnake video.
Amazing.
Very important to me as a young boy. So yeah.
And like the way the photo is, you don't see her face very clearly, but I didn't realize she was also the lady on the cover of the Rat album too.
Which I was gonna say which Rat album, but there might be only. Is there just like the one?
Well, whatever the one that has Round and Round on it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a copy of that. I was at a CD store in the late '90s, and the guy was like, he just had a stock of vinyl, and he was just like, he's like, somebody brought in 4 copies of this. Do you want it? So I took it. So I actually own that album cover. I didn't realize it was her. Just like. I'm blanking on the name of the actual album, but it's like her, and it almost looks like she's like crawling on her hands and knees towards like a furnace or something. It's a little weird.
You know what I will say? Like on my kind of shame list, I've never seen Witchboard.
Oh, you know what? If you watch that and you watch Night of the Demons, like you'll really be like, oh man, I wish Kevin Tenney would have had a bigger career. You know.
Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I do love Night of the Demons. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Witchboard. I feel like I never saw it, and I think in my head I always kind of confused it with Witch Trap, which I have seen. Yeah, but
yeah, like Witchboard, I remember seeing it like as a kid, renting it like really young when it first came out, probably. And I bought that Blu-ray that I want to say Scream Factory put out like maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And like, yeah, like I'm gonna have to rewatch that soon because
is there because Witch Trap is Kevin S. Tenney also? Is there any like connection between the two, or is it just like
I don't know. I really never like I'm friends with on Facebook with him too, and like he posts about both, but he never really talks about like if they're connected or not. I wouldn't think so. Like I know they end up making all these sequels and stuff, but like Witchboard seems, from what I remember of it, it seems fairly contained. Like.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's an evil power that's coming through the Ouija board. This guy who's like, kind of like a spirit or demon or whatever he is, and it seems like it's pretty vanquished. Like by the time the movie wraps up. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I was like, because I follow her on Facebook, and I swear it just seemed like 2 or 3 days ago she posted something. I mean, and especially like brutal talk about passing away, because I know she had 2 daughters and. Passing away like a day or 2 before Mother's Day. I mean, I feel sorry for her kids,
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry to bring it on a downer, but unfortunately, life gets in the way sometimes. Can't be all discussion about Ryan Johnson and Brie Larson. Sometimes real life has to creep in there. But anyway, yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Trev, I want to thank you for going on this journey. I kind of pitched you this idea a few weeks ago, and you were all about it. You answered the call of adventure, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was fun. It's fun to just, like I said, just chat about random stuff. So hopefully people enjoy listening to it. I don't know, but even if no one listens, I'm glad I got to talk to you for a bit.
It is, and I'm sure. Like I think more than anything, we can make this at least probably an annual discussion. I think once a year we need to, if not more, get together and talk about this stuff. So, yeah, everybody, thanks again. Trev, thanks for joining. We hope you guys have the best summer you can. I don't know if there will be a summer movie season this year or not, but either way, keep watching movies, keep having fun, and we see you guys again real soon right here back in the movie graveyard.